Welcome to a meeting of your Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. Representing District 1, Harry Cohen. Representing District 2, Ken Hagan. Representing District 3, Gwen Myers. Representing District 4, Stacy White. Representing District 5, Mariella Smith. Representing District 6, Pat Kemp. Representing District 7, Kimberly Overman. The County Administrator is Bonnie Wise. The County Attorney is Christine Beck. Time is set aside at the beginning of each meeting for citizens to speak on any issue, so we have time for everyone. Speakers are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. Today's meeting is brought to you with closed captioning by Hillsborough Television.
Good morning. Welcome to the Board of County Commissioners, Hillsborough County, April 6th board meeting. Today, I welcome everyone to attend, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. We did get a letter from Commissioner Cohen that he would be a little bit late this morning, and asked us to recognize that he will be here. Currently, he's not here, but given that he will be attending in person, I don't think we need a roll call. So I call the meeting to order, and first we're going to have the pledge, an invocation by our chaplain, Commissioner White. Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll ask that everyone please stand at this time for the pledge and invocation, and we'll begin with the pledge. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, I pray that you will guide this board, our staff and stakeholders this morning as we make decisions that are important to this county. I'll also give thanks for the leadership that we've had in this county throughout the years, and we'll see that leadership recognized this morning with an important award that this board presents each year. As always, I pray for members of our armed forces and first responders. Pray that you will guide them and keep them safe each and every day. And I continue to pray for peace across this world, and continue to pray for those in Ukraine. I give all these thanks and ask for these blessings in your heavenly name. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner White. I appreciate that. And okay, would like to recognize Ms. Wise for any changes to the agenda.
Thank you. We have one item off the agenda, item F2. This is to request the board approval of the ELAP subcommittee selection of the 2022 Theodore Roosevelt Hillsborough Forever Conservation Award. And this is Commissioner White's item. It will be scheduled for April 20th at 9 a.m. We have one commendation that has been deleted. This was recognizing Delta Sigma Theta. At 10 o'clock, item F1 is the presentation of the 2022 Ellsworth G. Simmons Good Government Award to Public Defender Julianne Holt. This is Commissioner Overman's item. Item E1 at 10:15 is a special appearance by John Flanagan, CEO of CareerSource Tampa Bay, to review the closure of the U.S. Department of Labor audit. At 10:30, item B1 is to direct staff to schedule and advertise a public hearing for April 20th to consider enacting an ordinance to levy a 1% discretionary transportation system sales surtax. Item E2 at 11 a.m. is to receive a special appearance by MGT Consulting Group to present the Hillsborough County Equity Profile Report. 11:45 is a recess for lunch. Those are the changes to the agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the changes? We have a motion by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Kemp. Please indicate your vote. I have no voting page. So I don't get to vote today, apparently. In the interim, while we work on this, could we do a roll call vote? I don't have a...
Overman,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried 6-0.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right. With that, I believe we move to public comment. I'm going to read through my statement, but I would like to ask for the board's consideration, given that we have 28 people that have signed up to speak this morning, and given that we do not have any proclamations, I'd like to recommend or ask for the board's consideration of taking public comment until our 10 o'clock time certain, and that way we'll give a majority of those individuals to speak. It still exceeds our normal 45 minutes, but I would like to try and allow those folks that have shown up this morning an opportunity to speak until our time certain, if that's possible.
I'll make a motion to just hear every speaker on the list this morning.
Okay, we have a motion to consider all of those that have signed up to speak today. As I mentioned, there's 28, I believe, that I can see, which is about 58 minutes, so it's about 10 minutes, a little bit more than 10 minutes than our normal 45 minutes set aside.
I would also suggest, as we've customary in the past, we've gone from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. Again, that allows everyone to get in. I think that's the 58 minutes that you said. If it's 3 minutes, then it'll be, what, an hour and 18 minutes or something. So 2 minutes, that's common that we've done that in the past.
I honestly know what it's like to sit on the other side of the podium and get prepared for speaking, and cutting it at two minutes is oftentimes difficult to do and make sure that their point is heard. So I appreciate the recommendation, but I wouldn't support that idea. Any other comments? Commissioner Moore, County Administrator Weiss.
I just wanted to be sure, I think the reason you were saying 10 o'clock is because we have the Good Government Award at 10 o'clock.
Right.
And there is quite a group that is here for that award. Okay. So I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Okay, and to take into consideration the desire for those that have signed up, the good part about this is that many of those that have signed up are signed up on the item. A lot of those that signed up are on the item that we basically are 10 o'clock time certain for last, the equity profile. So it's the board's pleasure. What would you prefer? We have a motion to consider all of those that have signed up to speak this morning prior to our time certain.
I would support that item as long as we're with the time certain.
And then take the comments that have signed up after the meeting. Okay.
Second.
Okay. So
Well, Madam Chair, point of order, there's already a motion and second on the floor. I think
Right,
we just have to
right.
take that to a vote. And
Let's take that to a vote, and then we'll proceed with either or the other item, or are you offering a substitute motion, Commissioner Hagan? No. Okay. All right, indicate your vote, please. I actually have a voting ballot now, so it's a good start. All right.
Motion carried 5-1. Commissioner Hagan voted no.
Excellent, thank you very much. And just for the record, I will recognize Commissioner Cohen, who had a birthday yesterday, so I want to wish him happy birthday, and thank you for arriving. The board welcomes comments from citizens about any issue and concern, and your opinions are valued in terms of providing input to the board members. However, it is requested at the same time that you address the board, that comments are not directed personally at any commissioner or staff member, but rather at the issues. This provides mutual respect between the board members and the public. The board has set aside a period in the morning, immediately following the changes to the agenda for public comment. At the discretion of the chair, the board again may hear public comments at the end of the meeting. Anyone who wishes to speak virtually or in person during the meeting may do so by completing the online public comment form found at hcfl.gov.net/speakup. The forum is open to the public for sign up 48 hours prior to the start of the meeting, and an option has been available to notify whether comments will be provided virtually or in person. Additionally, in-person speakers will be able to sign up to speak at the on-site via kiosk or smartphone the day of the meeting. For participants who wish to speak virtually who have completed the online form, an audio call-in number will be provided to you after the form is received by the county. All speakers will be required to provide their name, email address, and telephone number on the online form. This information will be requested to facilitate the public comment process. Sign-ups for virtual and in-person public speaking opportunities for the public hearings and public comment close at 9 a.m. on the day of the meeting. The chair will call on the speaker by name in the order of which they request to have been spoken, and prioritization will be on a first-come, first-served basis. With that, we do have several, as I mentioned earlier, speakers, and the first speaker listed is an in-person speaker, Karen Jaroche. You're recognized. Please come to the podium. Not seeing her come up. The next person to speak is signed up virtually is Sharon Calvert.
Hello?
Ms.
Hello?
Calvert, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'm Sharon Calvert and president of Fix Our Roads First. You plan to put the AFG 2.0 $18 billion rail tax on the November ballot when the county hasn't returned a penny of the unlawfully collected $562 million illegal AFT tax. Higher sales taxes are inflationary, directly hitting the bottom line of all businesses with commercial leases. Many of those are small businesses struggling with rising costs of doing business. You ignore raging inflation tax that's causing financial hardship, especially on the middle class, the low income, the fixed income, and the poor. You ignore paradigm shifts, telecommuting, telemedicine, online commerce and education, etc., that appear to be permanent shifts in how we conduct our daily lives. In your proposed tax charter amendment, Section 1106 is transit restricted for the 45% or $8.2 billion going to HART. Section 11.05 for the 54.5% general purpose funds are not road restricted funds, when the vast majority of constituents want new road capacity and their roads fixed. Why? Well, is the answer in what's been said, such as we must reduce congestion by getting single occupancy vehicles off the road, a transportation improvement plan that requires a single occupancy vehicle is responsible and is in direct conflict to our responsibility towards equity. You actually can create the goal or achieve the goal of congestion reduction without adding lanes to the process. The voters in 2018 voted to pay for transit, not fund new roads. Instead of road widening, the county needs to focus on getting cars off the road. Handing HART over $8 billion is a modest amount. Ironically, a HART board member made the case for why transit does not work for the super majority of people, with this answer for why they never use the bus. Transit is not very amenable to my kind of schedule. I'm not an 8 to 5 in one place type of person. For office workers who have set hours and set places, it works well. I have to have a vehicle. I'm in and out of the office all the time, so it would really be inconvenient for me to use the bus system. Your constituents are having to prioritize their budgets, and the county can properly prioritize its budget to fund its transportation needs without any new tax hike. How equitable is it for taxpayers in unincorporated Hillsborough to pay for rail, street level, accident-prone, congestion-causing rail in Tampa that benefits the wealthy downtown special interest and also will gentrify neighborhoods that displaces low-income and small businesses? Please be honest. Thank you.
The next speaker is Jim Davison, who's in person. Mr. Davison, please come to the podium. You're recognized.
Thank you for your time today, Board. I'm Jim Davison from New Tampa. It's almost like deja vu. I've been doing this for 25 years. This will be my 6th referendum. I wanted to talk about lying. And when you're lying, when you continue to lie, the lies have to get bigger. And that is exactly what the ballot referendum question states. It is a bigger lie than when it was in 2018. I don't have the time right now to go into all of the numbers, but if you want to go and look at the Cafe Con Tampa presentation I made a little over 2 weeks ago and put forth a transportation plan that actually produces more revenue than you and your staff has stated would be raised with their methods and this sales tax, I urge you to go and watch it. The discrepancies between your plan and the MPO are horrendous. But what really bothers me the most is the moral stance you tried to take about helping the poor and the minority communities. There are over 110,000 people living below the federal poverty level in unincorporated Hillsborough County than within the city of Tampa. There are over 170,000 African Americans living in unincorporated Hillsborough County than in the city of Tampa. None of them will ride the train, and that's what this is about, so let's get that straight. But you are going to make them pay for it. That is not going to help them. They need their congestion relief, their roads fixed. Your plan will do none of that, and I find that abhorrent. I have a $1,000 bet with anyone who tries to disprove what I am saying about this plan is false. So if you're looking for your campaigns, I would urge you to publicly come and debate us. You wouldn't do this the last time. I would not count on what happened in 2018. If you read the post-election analysis, you will know that a great many people didn't even know which way they voted. I urge you to reconsider. We should be talking about reauthorizing the CIT tax, not a 1% new sales tax for transportation. I thank you for your time, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.
The next speaker is Charlotte Greenbarg, who's attending virtually. Is Ms. Greenbarg available?
I am available.
Do you recognize,
please? I am Charlotte Greenbarg. I live in Lutz. Thank you. I live in Lutz in unincorporated Hillsborough. This virtue signaling effort to get a sales tax increase on the ballot, in spite of the millions you owe the taxpayers and the illegal Ultra transportation scandal, still not returned. Record inflation and continued pandemic is done to mask the real reason. It's all about profiteering from the development the Greepsters envision along the rail line, but the money will be used to build. That's what this outrageous waste of taxpayers' money is all about. One of the point people, as he was with the illegal Ultra transportation, is a commercial real estate attorney who texted me during that fraud. I told him to stop. He sent back an emoji of a dog laughing. I still have that emoji. This is all about taking money from people who are struggling to keep their homes, pay their insurance, stay in their rented homes, survive a pandemic and historic inflation that hasn't been seen in 30 years, so that the rich and entitled can become more rich and entitled. You will use eminent domain to take down homes along the path of the rail monster, homes that are usually in minority districts. Your county administrator in 2014 admitted during that last, or one of the first extravaganzas, that this was going to happen. This is a disgrace and it's shameful. Struggling families don't deserve to be abused by elected officials who are charged with serving them. Those who have been pushing this can still redeem themselves. Redemption is available. Please take advantage of it in the name of decency. Do not put this on the ballot.
The next speaker signed up to speak is George Neiman.
Good morning.
Neiman.
My name is George Neiman from unincorporated Hillsborough out in Dover. I oppose the idea of a transit referendum redo. We've sprawled for decades and our population is spread out over a huge footprint. Your plan appears to be totally focused on mass transit, but not on our roads. Those plans won't serve most of the people in unincorporated, yet you want us to pay for trains and buses we won't have access to and will never use. Everyone knows that the vast majority of residents are giving up are not giving up their cars. That being the case, the funding should go where the historic usage is, plain and simple. Before you even suggest another transit referendum, this is what the BOCC needs to do. First, reallocate the budget and put roads at the top of the list. Also, give Dr. Davison's plan some fair consideration. Seek to change the state law so that the city of Tampa can levy their own rail tax, because it will be the city residents that will be the primary users of rail. Put a moratorium on allowing special interests to constantly change our comprehensive plan so they can develop urban enclaves outside of the urban sector where we don't have the supporting infrastructure. Allowing special interests to routinely change our long-range growth plans to serve their own business goals continues to cause our costs to escalate. And fix the mobility fees so that they totally cover the impacts every time a dwelling is built. I was a citizen representative on the original mobility fee committee, and I want Hillsborough residents to know that this is a farce. Have you ever wondered why big land development money is pushing this tax? I'll tell you why. It's because they're afraid they will have to start paying for the full impacts of all the land they're developing if we don't approve this tax. Pay attention, folks. Hopefully enough people will demand that you do the things I mentioned before you move forward with any tax. Oh, and please stop using the term penny tax. Even though it's a great marketing slogan, it's quite deceptive. The 1% tax will cost the average family a few $100s a year. Starting now, let's tell the truth. Let's call it the hundreds tax. Thank you.
The next speaker is in person, Ron Weaver. You're recognized.
Thank you, Ron Weaver, 401 East Jackson Street. I rise on the occasion of asking you to please put the 1 cent ballot on, put the 1 cent sales tax on the ballot for our desperately needed mobility. I urge you to do so, if necessary, with compromise with respect to not having another West Side story of the Jets versus the Sharks and the rail stirs and bus stirs versus the road stirs, but that we compromise as a family and figure this out as a family budget to put the right amount in each. If people have unfounded fears about bus and rail, we need to educate them with respect to the necessity to put a dedicated bus line on Big Bend that goes by in 10 minutes instead of all those cars sitting for 45 minutes on Big Bend with their expensive gas and expensive insurance and expensive cars, to show folks the value for bus and rail as a component. If compromise can be found here to get everyone to support this ballot, everyone should support this ballot. With respect to raising impact fees instead, quite frankly, if you charge $30 for a movie ticket, nobody will go. You'll have less instead of more if you overdo the impact fees in the balance of what is achieved here. We know that 25% of this money is paid by tourists, so why should they get a free ride? We know that the national average for major metropolitan areas is that the transportation budget is 10% of the average family's household. In Hillsborough, it's 23%. We must reduce the percentage that goes to transportation so that more housing can become affordable. We need to put bus and rail near all housing, especially affordable housing, in order to render more housing affordable in Hillsborough County. That must be one of our primary goals. I respectfully urge you to find a family budget compromise on where this money goes to help those who demand roads and those who are fearful of spending of this money in the city instead of in the county. Will see from you, our parents, that we can watch from the back seat, and the children can see that our parents can compromise a family budget that finds a way to deal with our urgently needed mobility. How desperately do we need the dedicated stream? Yesterday, the Regional Conference on Resiliency found a $13 billion need for resiliency to deal with sea level change for 212 miles of coastline that is Tampa Bay. We have demands and needs from the sheriff with respect to $300 million jail, stormwater, mental health, affordable housing I've already spoken to. We must do this dedicated stream for transportation and do it together as a family that shows each other what is in this for each one of their urgent needs. And when you make that family budget, the Rolling Stones appeared here 5 months ago and Tampa Stadium sold out. You don't always get what you want. You don't always get what you want. But if you try, sometimes you get what you need. Let's make this family budget work, that everyone will support it. November 8, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. The next speaker signed up in person is Kenneth Tinkler. I'm not seeing Kenneth Tinkler in the audience or in person, so I'll move on to the next speaker is Sheila Simmons Tribble. Ms. Tribble, you're recognized.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Sheila Simmons Tribble, Bible-Based Fellowship Church Justice Ministry Team, and co-chair of the Hope's Affordable Housing Monitoring Committee, and a citizen of Hillsborough County, zip code 33615. I'm speaking this morning in support of the equity profile. I want to commend the board for passing and deciding to put equity on the board in front of us, and also for passing the resolution declaring racism a public health crisis. I will focus my remarks this morning based on some of the best practices that were cited in the report, particularly the community recommendations. And one was that hopefully we can make Hillsborough County an equitable county where all residents, regardless of ethnicity, race, gender, income, and zip code, are fully able to participate in the county's economic vitality and to connect to the county's resources and assets. I urge you to look at another one of the recommendations that is cited, in particular that came from the community, and that is community and stakeholder engagement and collaboration. And it is essential for this strategy to put forth. Specifically, looking at the continuous consideration of community engagement, because engagement with those closest to the problem is critical. And also engagement with those who look at and live in the area of equity and work in that space is also very important. Lastly, I'd like to speak to the cornerstone, which we feel is major, and that is the creation of the Office of Equity and Access. And in order to execute those strategies and recommendations that are listed, it is imperative that that office has the structure, the resources, both human and financial, and the authority to get in place the Equity Strategic Action Plan. And I'd ask you to please note in the study the plan that's happening in King County, Washington. I look forward to learning about the Equity Action Plan, but I also would like to offer my voice and expertise in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion to support, collaborate, and partner in order to be a change agent in our county. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker signed up to speak is actually signed up also in person, although I don't see her. Oh, yeah, there she is. Ms. Connie Burton. You recognized? No, I don't see her. Is Ms. Burton online? Not seeing, no response?
No, she's not online.
Okay, great, thank you very much. The next speaker signed up also in person is Natasha Perry. Ms. Perry, are you recognized? You're recognized, please come to the podium. Or Pierre, sorry. Natasha Pierre, you're recognized.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am Natasha Pierre, a Hillsborough County resident, and I'm also an intersectional unicorn. I am Indigenous, I am Hispanic, I am Black, I am a woman, and I live with a mental illness. Each of these identifiers reflects significant health inequities across the United States and Hillsborough County, all of which are directly related to historic systemic oppression. Quality and affordable health care must be regarded as a right for all county residents and not just a courtesy, because affixed to courtesies are subjective qualifiers that disproportionately affect people who identify as I do. Now, the recommendations set forth in the equity profile are just that. recommendations. They are suggestions for how action can move our county toward health equity. However, without the necessary funding, that 73-page document becomes yet another dream deferred. This equity profile provides you with an opportunity to be the commissioners that establish Hillsborough County as equitable for all residents, regardless of how they identify. 7 years ago, bipolar disorder, panic disorder, and PTSD threatened to overshadow my talents, my education, and my experience. But I had insurance, and so I was able to access the health care necessary to begin my recovery journey. I'm regarded as a mental health expert. I am a dean, an author. I am a political strategist. I contribute to my community, and I vote. It's been 7 years since my last Baker Act. My recovery journey, unfortunately, is the exception when it should be the rule. I know many people who are unable to access the health care necessary to live fulfilling lives. Like me, they deserve an opportunity to be healthy, they deserve an opportunity to make their dreams a reality, and they deserve to speak to commissioners too. Commissioners, we are counting on you to be the difference makers. This equity profile equips you with the information necessary to make lasting change. May I count on you to ensure that the funding is made available to make this equity profile and the recommendations a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pierre. And thank you for your courage. The next speaker is, if I'm going to mess it up, I'm sorry. Cayenne Connor, come on up.
You actually did great.
Oh, okay, great. You're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Dr. Cayenne Connor. I am an Associate Professor of Mental Health Law and Policy at the University of South Florida. I am a resident of Hillsborough County from zip code 33647. I came this morning to speak in support of the equity profile. I want to first applaud this board for its strength and for passing the resolution declaring racism as a public health crisis. Speaking as a clinician, as a nationally renowned trainer, as well as academician and scholar in the area of health disparities, I want to highlight that while this resolution, while the equity profile really highlighted a lot around access to care and disparities in insurance, and this, of course, is incredibly important and is something that we should all be focused on. But this is not the only issue with regard to the experience of health disparities for communities of color. The social determinants of health helps us to understand that while there are a variety of economic, social, as well as cultural experiences that are shaped by systemic racism, and these issues have a direct and intrinsic impact on health disparities for communities of color. If there are continued disparities in Hillsborough County with regard to who has access to higher education, if there are disparities in economic stability, if there are disparities in home ownership, if there are disparities in engagement with the criminal justice system, and if there are disparities in the experiences of discrimination and segregation, all of which were identified clearly in the equity profile, then we will continue to see disparities in health and behavioral health and health outcomes, irregardless of whether an individual has access to insurance or primary care. This resolution, along with recent legislation that restructured the Florida Office of Health and Minority Health and Health Equity, have created a critical pathway towards focusing on health equity in Hillsborough County. Health equity can be achieved, but it is impacted directly and indirectly by structural and systemic racism. And as such, we need structural and systemic solutions that can address inequities and the various social determinants of health that impact poor health outcomes for communities of color. And these health health disparities are expansive and include more than just HIV, AIDS, and infant mortality, but also cardiovascular disease, diabetes, hypertension, severe and persistent mental illness, COVID-19, and the list goes on. Such systemic solutions might involve large-scale Healthier Hillsborough campaigns, as well as targeted health promotion messaging to the people and communities most impacted by poor health outcomes. After this report is approved, I look forward to learning about the Equity Strategic Action Plan that will guide the implementation of the recommendations and the creation of a new Office of Equity and Access. And I'd like to finally offer my voice and expertise in the area of health disparities
Thank
to
you for your time, ma'am. Your time's up. Thank you. The next speaker is, oh, wow, I'm going to mess this one up, too. I'm sorry. Delanam Akahoho. You're recognized, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Delina Makahoho, and I am a graduate student at the University of South Florida, focusing on epidemiology and maternal and child health. And I'm also a citizen of the Hillsborough County 33613 zip code. I am speaking in support of the equity profile, and I want to praise the board for deciding to make equity a priority for our county and also working to pass the resolution that declared racism as a public health crisis. I'm here to strongly encourage the board to follow through with what is already in motion, especially as it relates to issues surrounding maternal and child health in Hillsborough County. The profile reported on the increasing rates of maternal mortality as it relates to Black women in Hillsborough County and the disproportional effect as compared to other races in this county. My recommendation for follow-through would be to include within the equity profile ways that funding can help alleviate this burden on our community, whether that's funding regarding existing programs or funding that results in collaborating and creating an increase in awareness for what is going on with Black women in Hillsborough County. I would also like to emphasize the importance of sustainability and an upstream approach as we are trying to make better our community. There's a need for an increase in visibility and communication with our community, and I ask that the board be very transparent in everything that they do, including the work that is being done with the equity profile. The decision to move the equity plan will not only impact me as a Black woman, but also as a future public health practitioner. You all are setting down the foundation for what I will do in the future. So in moving the equity forward, I hope to use the information in a lot of the work that I want to do, including my literature reviews and or research topics addressing the report. After this report is approved, I look forward to learning about the equity strategic action plan that will guide the implementation of the recommendations and the creation of the Office of Equity and Access. I'd like to offer my voice and expertise in the areas of maternal and child health and or public health, and would look forward to collaborating and partnering with you all as an agent for change and justice in Hillsborough County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Thomas Mance, who signed up to speak in person, but I'm not seeing him in the audience. Pardon me?
Good morning, Commissioner.
Oh, he's online. Okay, great. Thank you. You're recognized, sir.
Good morning, Commissioner. This is James. So he did sign up in person. He switched to virtual. We provided the invitation, but he has not joined yet.
Okay, so we'll move him down the list in the event that he's able to join us at a later time. As we have with those that either didn't show at the time that their name was called. Claudette Graves is the next person in person. Ms. Graves, you're recognized.
Good morning. My name is Claudette Graves, and I am also with Bible-Based Fellowship Church. I live also in Hillsborough County in area code 33549. I also would like to thank you for passing the resolution in regards to declaring health as racism as a public health crisis. Today, I come to you with one word: compassion. A society, compassion, first let me define compassion, the ability to suffer, to feel the suffering of another and to act on it. A society without compassion becomes uncivilized, brutal, and callous. A society with compassion is filled with kindness, and we're able to promote one another and move forward together. So how do we become a society full of compassion? That is, we have to bring the members of the community that deal with issues to the table, those who the issues affect. So in our society right now, we're dealing with 3 major issues: mass transit, our workforce issues, as well as wages. When we bring those members of society that those issues affect to the table, we now create what we know as the Office of Equity and Access. And we get to hear their voice. We don't just get to assume how they are feeling. We get to hear them and know. And now we can act. And so I ask that when this report is complete, that you will have those voices at the table. I'll also volunteer my services to be one of those voices, to speak to any one of those issues. I thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And looking forward to the partnership. The next speaker is Lori Jones, who's signed up to speak in person. Ms. Jones. Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
My name is Lori Jones-Aluku, Hope Criminal Justice Co-Chair, a Justice Ministry Team Leader at Bible-Based Fellowship Church, and a citizen of Hillsborough County, zip code 33647. I came today to speak in support of the equity profile. I want to acknowledge and commend the board for deciding to make equity a priority in our county and for passing the resolution declaring racism as a public health crisis. Over the past several years, we've heard many stories from our members or their loved ones who have experienced being stopped because of the color of their skin. Through our research, we learned that our law enforcement agencies don't effectively collect and analyze data on traffic stops, and this makes it challenging to measure enforcement practices. We believe collecting data offers a common ground for police, elected officials, and the community to discuss concerns about racial profiling and bias in policing. Data is knowledge, and accountability is the key. When we know what's happening, action steps can be taken to address the problem. The important Envision Resolution Community Engagement event on June 27th will focus on criminal justice and topics acknowledged in the report. During this event, we will hear directly from the community about disparities in our criminal justice system and biases they have experienced just by living while Black. After the report is approved, I look forward to learning about the Equity Strategic Action Plan, the plan that will guide the implementation of the recommendations and the creation of a new Office of Equity and Access. I'd like to offer my voice and my lived experience to support, collaborate, and partner to be an agent for change and justice in Hillsborough County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Ralph Smith, who's signed up to speak virtually. Is Mr.
Yes, good
Mr.
morning,
Smith?
Hillsborough County Board. Hello.
What was that?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed. You're
Hello?
recognized.
Oh, okay. Good morning, Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners and everyone else attending this meeting. My name is Ralph Smith. I'm a resident of Hillsborough County and reside in Tampa, zip code 33602. I'm speaking this morning in support of the Community Equity Profile Report. I want to praise the board for passing the resolution declaring racism as a public health crisis. This is certainly a great first step. Acknowledging a problem must necessarily be the first step in fixing the problem. And though racism has existed for a long time, its presence has not always been acknowledged. This morning, I want to address the digital divide portion of the Community Equity Profile Report. The digital divide is the divide between those that have access to technology and the internet and those that do not. It is multifaceted, involving such factors as technology access, affordability, service quality, and digital literacy. It is one of the 9 pillars of the report and is listed as educational access / digital divide. One of the things I want to mention and ask you to consider is the digital divide as you make plans to address other issues that were outlined in the 9 pillars. For instance, when we are thinking about outreach, have we considered how different populations with varying levels of income and accessibility are going to have access to the content provided? Have we thought about someone whose primary internet device is a phone rather than a tablet or computer? We need to know that the plan has this equity lens focus on the whole spectrum of our population. Once again, I want to thank the Board of County Commissioners for undertaking this resolution and for putting a focus on long-standing issues that impact a major portion of our population. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Robert Boileau, I believe. Boileau is signed up virtually. Is he present?
Yes, I am. Good morning, Commissioners.
You recognize, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Robert Boileau, community resident of Hillsborough County. I reside in zip code 33614, and I'm speaking this morning in support of the equity profile. I want to thank and congratulate the board for deciding to make equity a priority in our county and for passing the resolution declaring racism as a public health crisis. The recommendations in the report are very important. I think it's a pretty large report. I've been impressed by all the things that it points out, and the various observations and key findings that it made. Key findings such as current inequities are directly related to historic systemic oppression. Also, the Hillsborough community is concerned primarily with affordable housing and economic opportunity. Those are issues that I've worked on in the past as a member of Holt and Hillsborough Organization for Progress and Equality. The key recommendations of the report, not equity and access. I fully support that and hope that you will bring that to fruition. Also, to conduct a risk-benefit analysis of instituting a disparity study, establishing an apprenticeship program in emergent and green technologies, conduct a disproportionate minority impact study on criminal justice, which is another area we've worked on in the past, provide ongoing and comprehensive DEI training to all staff, support enhancements in the public transportation system for all our community, and especially those who are more financially challenged. And finally, enforce the regular use of an equity decision guide. I support all of those and want to again commend the board for their actions and hope they will continue on this path to make our community a better one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Angela Birdsong. Is Ms. Birdsong virtually attending?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please proceed.
Yes.
You're recognized.
Okay. Angela Birdsong, Carrollwood, Florida, 33618. Former member of Bible-Based Fellowship Church and current candidate for Hillsborough County Commission. And I want to say a big thank you to the board for the resolution declaring racism as a public health crisis. And I'm sure we can all agree that slavery, Jim Crow laws, segregation, redlining have left their stain, which people are still suffering with today. And as a licensed health and life agent working with the senior population, I am seeing a lot of diabetes and end-stage renal failure. And these things are due to poor diet, which are caused a lot by food deserts. So these are things that can be fixed. I'm asking the board to approve the equity profile and create an Office of Equity and Access within 6 months, and to identify some leadership that the community can communicate with. And may I also say, go commissioners, go transit, marginalized people need a way to get to work, and thank you for your efforts with the referendum, and I will be voting for the 1 cent tax. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Antoinette Davis, who is here in person, please. You're welcome to join the podium, please.
Great morning.
Good morning.
My name is Antoinette Davis. I am a resident of Hillsborough County in the 33592 zip code. As Director of Justice Ministry, I have the honor to be a source of hope and encouragement to many people and a resource for information. Every year in the fall, we have listening gatherings, and I get to hear hundreds of stories of injustice related to the 9 pillars that we find in the equity profile, and they are heartbreaking. A member of ours tells a story about struggling to afford housing in a certain neighborhood so that her 2 black sons can go to certain schools. This should not be. The history of structural and institutional racism is still being felt today. We do have a public health crisis. The systems working as they were intended is causing poor health outcomes for Blacks, Indigenous, and people of color. This is not politics. This is people's lives. People are sick with diseases that are avoidable. And if we act now, we will be better prepared for the next pandemic and COVID-19-like virus. You all have passed the resolution to declare racism a public health crisis. You have done the equity study, and the solution is equity. Equity is a stimulus, and it's a great way forward to address the disparities that we see in the equity profile. An equity profile done of Pinellas County revealed that, and I quote, "The Pinellas County economy would be $3.6 billion larger if there were no racial gaps in income. Therefore, the community is asking this board to, number 1, approve the equity profile, number 2, fund the creation of the Office of Equity and Access, using the best practice provided, giving that office executive level authority. Finally, we are looking forward to the strategic action plan that the recommendation and equity profile calls for, and once the Office of Equity and Inclusion is created."
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Thank you.
Sorry, your time is up. Next speaker in person is Brent Anderson. Mr. Anderson, please come to the podium and you're recognized.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Thank you for having me. My name is Brent Anderson with the Y Green Energy Fund. There were a couple concerns that were brought to us via staff. We responded to them via email this week. I hope that you all have that email. If not, I'm happy to send it your way. But in summation, really quick, all 3 individuals that were brought up as concerns were current on their property taxes when the assessment was done. And all 3 of them, we are currently actively reaching out to find solutions and help them get assistance any way possible that we can help them. I'll be hanging around for when this agenda item comes up, and I'm happy to answer any questions at that time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Jennifer Rojo Suarez, is virtually attending. Is she present? Communications?
Yes, hello. Good morning.
You're welcome, Science. Please proceed.
Yes, hi, good morning. Board members, I'm Jennifer Rojas-Suarez. I am with Renew Financial, a PACE provider under the Florida Green Finance Authority. I'd like to speak on item G1, the staff report in regards to the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. I just wanted to say that we are committed to working with homeowners going through any temporary hardship. We have a hardship assistance program to help homeowners that have temporary hardship get back on their feet. If the homeowner goes through the program, we will make a payment on the homeowner's behalf without requiring repayment. We did meet with staff in regards to our program and how we did share with Mr. Strom and the team that homeowners sometimes don't take advantage or respond in terms of this resource. So we talked about hopefully, working together and collaborating so that we could notify homeowners about this resource along with the county. So again, we are committed to working with homeowners and hope to continue working with the county in terms of any hardship homeowners that have a renewed financial PACE assessment, that we could help notify them in regards to our hardship assistance program. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Josie Fickey in person. Josie, Ms. Fickey, please. Thank you. You're recognized.
Good morning. My name is Josie Fickey. I reside in unincorporated Valrico, Florida. And I'm here to speak on behalf of the taxes that you're proposing. My family is a sixth-generation Floridians, the third here in Hillsborough County. The tax increase you're proposing is unjustifiable by your own excuses. I have reviewed and thought about your comments. One, Ms. Overman, I quote you, is a lot of people are not going to be happy with their tax notice, you acknowledge, but we need to invest in our infrastructure. The president you voted for has passed trillions of dollars in infrastructure packages across the nation for the states. How can you sit there and justify a tax hike on our people when your president has given you trillions already to address it? This is not only an unacceptable answer as to why you want to raise our taxes, especially it's unacceptable when our citizens can barely afford food and because of the gas that is already high because of your people's environmental plans. I watched for 2 decades as my Tampa base turned into never-ending building projects. It's turned into a metropolis, and it keeps stretching out. I'm told it's for the betterment of our community, and after witnessing these projects myself and their aftermath, I have often said, what a joke with special interest. I have watched communities that have been in our area for hundreds of years be removed and relocated into places that they are unfamiliar with and unhappy in. I'm very aware that the federal judge, Chief Justice Charles Candid, and the federal Supreme Court here in Florida, or the state Supreme Court here in Florida, has already struck down your 1% tax increase for transportation and made you return the funds, which you have yet to do. Why? I believe we need an explanation for that as citizens who are still paying taxes. The Florida Supreme Court ruled 4-1 that your tax increase was unlawful to the citizens of Hillsborough County. Stacey White and Bob Emerson was there. I'm sure Mr. White can remind you all if you need a reminder of that ruling. The 5-cent tax on our gas tax on top of the 1% tax to our citizens, you're joking, right? Why are you shoving this down our throat every year, every time you get a chance? Just like the trolley cart transportation and our wonderful crosstown we've spent billions on and continue to pay for. The trolley sits empty half the time, and you can almost take a cruise at 100 miles an hour on the top deck of the crosstown in a Corvette. On the note of the teachers needing more money, why are you taking more of our tax dollars when Ron DeSantis has just allocated millions of dollars for teachers and the feds have given millions for schools throughout the nation? The Board of County Commissions really needs to stand with the people who put you there. How about providing us quality education? Our schools are some of the worst in the state. You don't get more money for less quality.
Thank you. Your time is up, ma'am. I inadvertently skipped Carmen Edmonds, who's attending virtually. Is Ms. Edmonds, if you're available, you're recognized.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Please proceed.
My name is Carmen Edmonds. I live in Loop, and I'm calling today to address the 1% transportation tax increase you all are considering putting on the ballot this year. I respectfully ask you reconsider. In a time when inflation is at an all-time high and housing and rent prices are out of control here in Hillsborough County, this tax will put an undue burden on all citizens of Hillsborough County, especially those on fixed income. The last transportation tax you all put on the ballot was done so illegally, and nothing has been done to remedy returning the money to Hillsborough County citizens. Hillsborough County has the money to repair our roads, but unfortunately, this board does not seem to value doing that. There is money already available. There is an existing 0.5% infrastructure tax out there. It can be reauthorized for transportation. Is the board willing to look into reallocating this 0.5% tax and save us from more tax and spend? This board seems to have forgotten you work for we the people. Please do not add this unnecessary and burdensome tax to the ballot. It does nothing to address the real problems of our transportation issues. This tax only benefits Tampa proper and does nothing to benefit the unincorporated areas of Hillsborough County. No new transportation taxes. And concerning the equity program, this is just a suggestion to those in favor of it to dig deeper into the underlying intent of this BOCC. Connect the dots. They are not being transparent. This is a program with good intentions, but the BOCC is using it for land grabs and reasons to displace many who are underserved to further promote their needless rail system and turn downtown Tampa into a tourist destination filled with trains and a baseball stadium. This only benefits special interest groups and the elite. This is not equity in the least form of the word. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Kathy Starnes, is also attending virtually. You're recognized.
Yes. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I'm a precinct committee person and would like to know what percentage of the ad valorem tax, the CIT tax, the existing gas tax, mobility fees, grants, and other federal monies are currently allocated for road improvements. Dr. Jim Davison has a plan to pay for road improvements using these existing revenues. Your chart of the transportation meetings listed mobility fees at $7 million, when according to your office, they are $30 million this year, projected $38 million next year, and are rising each year. The ad valorem tax was not listed on your posters at the meetings, yet it exists, and Pasco County funds most of its road improvements using their ad valorem tax. The CIT tax from 1996 paid for the Ray J Stadium, and now 25% goes to our public schools. That leaves 75% of the CIT tax usable for road improvements, although municipalities receive a percentage of that amount. By not listing the ad valorem tax, the existing gas tax is now assigned to salaries, sidewalks, and potholes, but not much needed road improvement projects. Is it true only 6% of the current gas tax is used for road improvements? Is it also true $35 million for road improvements is available from a federal government COVID-19 relief fund? Dr. Jim Davis's plan gives us over $4 billion in tax revenues for road improvements over 30 years without new taxes. If you want to train from USF to South Tampa, why don't you clearly specify this in your amendment proposal? Isn't it deceitful to embed a tax for tracks within a supposed transportation tax amendment? Sunrail is an absolute disastrous money pit. Amtrak is a money pit. You are stewards of the taxpayers' money and are accountable to them. You have 3 taxes and 1 fee, along with grants and federal relief funds available to you to use for road improvements. Is it true some commissioners have publicly stated they want to tear down I-275 from Malfunction Junction to Bears Avenue? Do not punish the citizens of Hillsborough County by forcing a tax for your elite train from USF to South Tampa. Thank you.
The next speaker is John Norden, who's attending virtually. You're recognized.
Madam Chair, John has not checked into the meeting.
Excellent, thank you. The next speaker is Lena Young-Green.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you once again. My name is Lena Young-Green, and I am calling. My residence is in the Tampa Heights community. Today, I'm calling to let you know how much we appreciate your creation of this initiative to address equity in our county. As one who has been a part of the national effort to participate in the Healthiest City County Challenge, this initiative is going to go a long way to help us towards becoming one of those entities in the national realm. Transportation is an important part of equity. While I'm very, very committed to the other areas that are referenced in this report, housing, health, economic opportunities, the digital divide, I really want to share that transportation is an important part of equity. I urge you to accept the resolution as it's proposed. I ask that you create the next step that's going to be required. I look forward to participating in all of the efforts that relate to this, to including equity as an important part of our community. And I thank you once again for allowing us to address this very important issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Vanessa Vasquez, and we have one more person that was on the list that showed up on time. We have several, 5 individuals that were on the list that have not shown up, and we'll go in the order of which they were listed to see if they are present. Vanessa Vasquez is signed up virtually. You're recognized.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Vanessa Vasquez. I am a Latin Hillsborough County resident, and I am calling in opposition to the 1 cent transportation tax that we will be seeing in November. I believe that the board needs a reality check. Right now, people are suffering. There's skyrocketing gas prices, skyrocketing food prices, raging inflation, and people are financially struggling with all this economic uncertainty. And currently it feels like the board doesn't care. Instead, your solution is let's tax them some more. Why? You have plenty of money to cover all the transportation needs for this county, and yet you want to unnecessarily burden taxpayers in Hillsborough County with a high sales tax, which happens to be the most regressive tax that hurts minority communities, hurts the poor, it hurts lower class people and people on fixed incomes. It hurts my Hispanic community, it hurts the Black community, it hurts everyone. And I'm hearing a lot of talk about how the board wants to declare racism as a public health emergency. Well, your actions speak louder than your words. You want to help the minority communities? How about not taxing them when you have plenty of money to cover the transportation problems that we're having in this county? That's exactly what you're doing. And on top of that, it's being really deceptively portrayed to the community. It's not a 1 cent tax. It is not a penny tax. This is a 30-year-long 1 cent tax that's going to amount to $18 billion that is not going to go to the transportation issues that we need. So this is a deceptive way to go after minority communities. You're targeting our communities with this unnecessary tax, and I implore the board to reconsider. This should not be on the ballot. We saw it back in 2018, and it did not fly with the Supreme Court.
They found it unconstitutional. Why is it that the only person who's fighting to get that money that was illegally stolen happens to be the white guy on the board? Huh? Why is that the case? What everyone should be doing on that board is trying to help people with either tax relief, getting the money that was taken to them in 2018 back. We need that money. Things are tough. Our communities are struggling. And I implore the board to reconsider
Your time
this.
is up, ma'am. Thank
This
you.
should not-
The next speaker is Maura Lanz, who's here in person. Thank you, Ms. Lance. You're recognized. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Commissioners. I've been a lifelong resident of Hillsborough County, zip code 33603. And I just come to tell you that I am upset about this 1% tax. This 1% tax will increase each household by 15%. That's a 15% increase per household. That's a lot of money. And on top of that, a 5-cent gas tax when people are struggling, it's unbelievable. People have gone through so much during this COVID epidemic. They've lost their businesses during the shutdowns. Many businesses aren't even coming back. And this board is proposing more taxes. It's unbelievable. Our roads have been traditionally paid for from our revenues, our property taxes, which I pay a great deal. In fact, the entrance to this county building, my minority business built. And I built many things in this county. And I, as a minority, as a Hispanic, are speaking to you because you're hurting the people that are most in need are being hurt by these taxes. The gas tax, the property taxes. As a landlord, you raised our property taxes in 2021. There was an increase in our water in 2021. Our insurance rates were increased in 2021. And I'm sure that our electricity will be increased. As a landlord, I cannot afford not to raise rents if I'm being raised. And it's this board that's raising my fees, so I have no choice. I have to pay maintenance fees, I have to pay for repairs, and so for these reasons, as a small landlord, I have to raise rents. And if you're concerned about the small person, about those that are low income, then you will rethink putting these taxes on our ballot. And not only that, but hopefully people are waking up and will see that this is ridiculous and we need relief. And I remind you that except for one, all of you are up for re-election. Thank you.
The next speaker, who actually was earlier on the list, is in person. That's Karen Jarosh. You're recognized. Please come to the podium.
Thank you for accommodating me. I was actually stuck on I-275 from Bears to Hillsborough. It took 25 minutes to get here. There was an accident, so we really need relief on I-275. But I'm here to talk about the 1% sales tax hike. I believe in a robust bus service in the urban core.
It makes sense, but HART already has a funding source. The agency currently is receiving $56 million per year from ad valorem property taxes, far less than the general revenues appropriated to the Public Works Department for all of Hillsborough County to update and maintain our roads. That is this body's choice each year, and not due to the lack of funds. Property tax receipts are up each year to the tune of 7 to 9%. I don't support the transit spending in the proposed tax plan because I don't support the fixed guideways in this plan. Whether you call them premium transit, transit options, or what it really is, rail and trains. Trains are super costly to build and operate, and they provide relatively little mobility except to a declining number of downtown commuters. And I'm going to give you the example of Sunrail. Former commissioners on this board talked about how Sunrail, when it opened in 2014, it was going to be the shining example of how transit could work in a city. Well, let's look at what's happened in the 7 years since it's been running. Well, their operating budget is $59 million a year, and they're projecting $2.9 million in fares. Now, the industry standard for a good transit project is a 25% recovery rate. Currently, Sunrail is planning for a 4% recovery rate, meaning that 96% of the costs are subsidized by taxpayers. And what are those costs? If you look at the less than 1 million rides a year Sunrail provides, half of those are round trips, so that's less than 500,000 round trips, over 59 million operating costs. That means that the taxpayers are paying 96% of $120 per day per commuter. For every commuter that steps on Sunrail and goes downtown and back, it's $120. They pay $5, taxpayers pick up the rest. We don't need to enter into these costly, expensive train projects that are going to be like checking into Hotel California, because once you check in, you can't check out. Especially given your sustainability growth survey that you did a year and a half ago, 89% of Hillsborough County respondents says they want their roads fixed. That was 12-1 when given another question where they could choose roads or mass transit. 12-1, they chose their roads. This plan overfunds transit. More than 45%, but more, is going to go towards mass transit. $342 million is projected in the first year.
Thank you, ma'am. Your time is up.
Thank you.
I have, previously, Mr. Tinkler was in person. Is he in the audience? Not seeing him. I'll recognize it to see if Ms. Burton is on virtually. She had signed up virtually. I believe, yeah. Actually in person, I don't see her either. So, Mr. Mance, you're online. You're welcome. You're recognized, or was, assuming he's still in person.
Thank you,
I still see his name.
Commissioner. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please proceed.
Thank you, and I apologize for the confusion. I appreciate the opportunity today to speak to you also. Good morning, Commissioners and Ms. Wise. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Community Equity Profile created by MGT Group. I know that presentation will be made later today. What I want to recognize and affirm is the critical importance that all of us understand, making sure that everyone has access and equal access to the things that make sure that our lives are capable, that we are able to access services, opportunities, and training that lifts all of us towards a economic future and a personal household safety and security that we all wish for. What the report outlines is what I think all of us know, which is there are still critical underlying issues of disparity that we need to, of course, address as a society, but we also need to address practically and functionally. I want to recognize and again thank the board and the county administrator, Ms. Wise, for your investment in our work, which will help continue to lift services and training and opportunities across our community. We do know that food insecurity affects families of racial, black and brown families at greater level. And so our work, along with all of our opportunities to address food insecurity and other household issues, is lifted by your investment in us. But I think also I want to affirm and appreciate the work that you all are doing to make sure that we provide as much resource as we can to make sure that all of our community is okay. I would finish by saying I think we all understand and agree that our community is lifted when everyone is lifted. And making sure that we invest in every household, every person, every community ultimately creates a healthier and more capable community, which is something all of us want, no matter our particular positions as elected officials or private citizens or organizations. We all benefit from a community that is healthier and more capable. So we look forward to the results of this report, and most importantly, we look forward to continue working alongside the commissioners, the county, and other community partners to make sure that those that have want or need of a service or an opportunity, it's provided for them, to them, by us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I only have one other name on the list to call. Otherwise, we are ready to move to our was going to be 10 o'clock and locate Ms. Holt, so that would be great. That name is, the gentleman who did not show was signed up virtually, John Norden. Is that person available to speak online? No? Okay, then we can move on to our... I'm sorry? Who was
Sorry,
that?
he is not signed into the meeting.
Okay, great, thank you. Then we can move on. To our agenda.
Chair, Madam Chair.
So, Ms. Wise, you're recognized.
Thank you. We do have the consent agenda that we can do.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Move the consent agenda.
Second. And with that, we'll do a, you can indicate by your vote, please. Please leave quietly. We're about moving, where the meeting is still in place. Please leave quietly. It's the first time I've been able to use that. That's pretty awesome. Okay, so we've actually indicate your vote for approving the consent agenda. On that, we will move on to recognize Ms. Wise. Oh, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Kemp.
Commissioner Kemp?
Your vote, please, for the consent agenda. Okay, great. Please enter quietly. Thank you. Ms.
Motion
Wise, you're
carried,
recognized.
6-0.
Thank you very much. Ms. Wise, you're recognized.
Thank you. Our first item is item at 10 o'clock. This is the presentation of the 2022 Ellsworth G. Simmons Good Government Award to Public Defender Julianne Holt.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much. The next item this morning is a very, very special award for both the Board of County Commissioners and the people of Hillsborough County. It is our pleasure to present the 2022 Ellsworth G. Simmons Good Government Award, and I'm going to recognize Commissioner Smith, who will talk about the history of the award. And Commissioner, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. The Board of County Commissioners established the Ellsworth G. Simmons Good Government Award in 1996 to honor an individual or group for the significant role they play in improving government through leadership and vision. The Ellsworth G. Simmons Good Government Award is named in honor of a respected government and civic leader who served 6 years on the Hillsborough County School Board and 21 years on the Board of County Commissioners. Through Mr. Simmons' efforts and involvement in such initiatives as the University of South Florida, Tampa International Airport, and University Community Hospital, he helped transform Hillsborough County. Since the first Ellsworth G. Simmons Good Government Award was presented to the late U.S. Representative Sam Gibbons in 1997, Hillsborough County has had the pleasure and honor to recognize the achievements and lives of 25 individuals whose dedication to public service has strengthened Hillsborough County's legacy. Past winners include Florida Speaker of the House, H. Lee Moffitt, Judge E.J. Salcinas, Governor Bob Martinez, and Hillsborough County Commissioner Jan K. Platt. The most recent recipients were the Honorable Betty Castor, Honorable Arthenia Joyner, and Honorable Leslie Les Miller, Jr. At this time, I want to recognize the Simmons family and the other members of the award selection committee. It is truly wonderful that we continue to have a member of the Simmons family involved in this award, and we thank Michelle Henry, the late commissioner's granddaughter, for her service every year. We also appreciate the service of the other committee members who made nominations and recommended the finalists. They are Brenda Thrower, the committee chair, Freddie Barton, Kim Droege, John Godwin, Joe Guidry, Bimitra Simmons, and Edith Stewart. So, Commissioner Overman, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Commissioner Smith, the individuals who earn this award, since Ms. Holt is with me, earned this award over the past 25 years have had a profound positive impact on Hillsborough County. And these leaders is what's shaped our community today and made the wonderful place that Hillsborough is to live. I am very pleased to introduce this year's recipient, Ms. Julianne M. Holt, the public defender for the 13th Judicial Circuit. A native of Fort Worth, Texas, which, believe it or not, I have lived in, such a place. Ms. Holt graduated from Lato High School, Hillsborough County Community College, and the University of South Florida with a BA in Business Administration and Management before attending South Texas College of Law. She excelled in her studies and was listed in the who's who of American college students before graduating summa cum laude. She joined us to Tampa and returned to Tampa to begin her private law practice in 1981 and has been a resident ever since. She is proud to call Hillsborough County her home. In 1987, from 1987 to 1992, Ms. Holt worked as a special court-appointed public defender until she made an important decision that positively impacted the community she serves. She ran for the office of public defender in the 13th Judicial Circuit. After winning the election, she became the second female public defender and one of the very few Hispanic public defenders in the state of Florida. Ms. Holt has been reelected 7 times, and that's not an easy task, folks. Well, a phenomenal achievement. She has served with distinction in the office for nearly 30 years. Today, she remains the only Hispanic female public defender in the state. We are proud of that, very proud of that. Throughout her tenure, she has been steadfast in her mission to provide indigent clients with superior legal representation. It is a mission that everyone in her office is proud to uphold. Managing the largest criminal defense firm in Hillsborough County, which defends between 40,000 and 45,000 cases each year. Ms. Holt is joined by 217 dedicated staff members, including 134 attorneys and 83 investigators, social workers, clerks, and support staff. In addition to her duties, she doesn't have anything else to do. I mean, I think that's pretty remarkable. In addition to these duties associated with daily management of the office, Ms. Holt personally focuses in the area of homicide cases. This includes cases involving the death penalty and first-degree felonies, a practice she requires all administrative attorneys who work in her office. Courtesy of her outstanding leadership, the office has made tremendous strides in strengthening the rights of its clients. In addition to legal services, Ms. Holt and her staff devote their time, financial support, and talents to help aid organizations, students, and individuals in need. She serves as an adjunct professor at the University of South Florida, go Bulls, since 1997. And over the course of her tenure, her office has participated in more than 600 events benefiting local and national charities. The Tampa Bay Equal Opportunity Committee has recognized her for actively recruiting, interviewing, and hiring minorities for all positions in the office, from file clerk to attorney, with 63% of the staff being female and 35% minorities. Well done, well done. Outside of the Public Defender's Office, Ms. Holt actively participated in numerous committees and councils and boards, some of which I sit on, and her valued participation and leadership is appreciated. And those committees focus on issues with criminal justice system, including Safe and Sound Hillsborough, the Florida Public Defenders Association, the Public Safety Coordinating Council, the Phoenix House, the Phoenix House, and others as an example to all of us that embodies the spirit of the Ellsworth G. Simmons Good Government Award. And it is my privilege to recognize your achievements today. In addition to this lovely trophy, I'm going to do the Vanna White thing, everybody see? Which I'm going to allow you to hang on to for a second. Thank you so much. Your name has been added to a perpetual plaque that lists all the Ellsworth G. Simmons Good Government Award winners. It is displayed outside of our boardroom here on the second floor at the County Center. I hope you saw that when you came in. We're so grateful for your work, and I just want to wish you a heartfelt congratulations. And I'll give you you have the trophy, which is quite beautiful actually, and allow you to have an opportunity to address the board and the audience. Please, please, very much.
Madam Chairman, Chairwoman.
Thank you.
And board members, number one, thank you very much for this acknowledgement and for this award. I truly am humbled and honored. To the committee who nominated me, I want to thank you all very, very much. Some of you I've known for a long time, some of you I haven't known as well, but I am truly honored today and humbled by this recognition. I'm probably one of the few people in the room that remembers Ellsworth Simmons, and obviously the 25 prior recipients, so many of them have been influential in my life. And have really helped, my pathway through life. And so thank you very much for this recognition. For those of you that are here in the audience today, without you all, and so many of you, Dana, who is here, who was with me before I ever became the public defender, so many of you were really a part of my personal life before I became the public defender. Many of you have become my friends and have become my partners through this journey. Many of you have worked side by side with me for the 30 years that I've been the public defender. For that, I am eternally grateful. The awards that I may receive in my name are truly only a reflection of all of the friendships that I have, all of the partnerships that I have, and everything that you have allowed me to do through those partnerships and through those friendships. There is nothing that can be accomplished by yourself. And so please know today that I am truly and eternally grateful for the opportunity to have served this community. It is a journey that I will cherish for my entire life. And I will, as I leave in a couple of years, I will never regret one thing that happened over the last 30 years, because I am walking away much, much more rich than I started 30 years ago. So thank you all very much. Thank you to the community for allowing me the honor to serve.
So I'm going to go off script a little bit, but in the order, the commissioners will have an opportunity to comment in just a moment, but we do have a special guest here who has asked to celebrate your honor. And I'd like to ask Cindy Stewart, our county clerk, who'd like to share their thoughts with Ms. Holt and her latest achievement. Ms. Stewart, please join us.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm not sure what's left to say after that. Thank you to the commissioners and to the committee for offering me and allowing me to add a little bit to what has already been said about Ms. Holt. I believe Ms. Frank was on televised on WebEx this morning, and if she's not still there, she wanted to also participate and offer her congratulations for this very prestigious award, which she also shares with you now. I have worked with Julianne for the last 7 or 8 years, and I have to tell you, I can never do what this woman does. She chairs meetings, continues to work, is on her phone, and never misses a beat. So serving next to you and with you for the things that you champion is my honor. I congratulate you today for everything that you have done for this community. A lot of that revolves around the most needy people in this community, the most underserved, and I appreciate that about you. A lot of the work we've done together on Safe and Sound and on DJJ, which we first started working together, is incredible. And I can't thank you enough. We're going to miss you in this community. I know you're not going anywhere. And I keep saying she'll find something. She keeps threatening she's going to work in my office when she retires, go back to her clerk days. But congratulations again for everything you've done for this community. We're better off with you here.
Ms. Stewart, would you mind staying up here for a moment? And with that, I also have gotten a request from Sheriff Chronister. There you go. Would you like to join us here, please?
Good morning, everyone. Madam County Administrator, distinguished board, I'm sorry to talk with my back to you. Now you know how I feel when I try to talk to my wife. But thank you for taking the time to recognize someone who has such a positive impact on our community. Our public defender just doesn't deserve this award. She defines it. She is tireless. She is passionate. And she can't do enough for this community. She remains the checks and balances for our criminal justice system and seeks ways constantly to improve this criminal justice system. Her lead from the front management style actually puts her in the courtroom where she tries cases to serve as a mentor for other attorneys. And she's such a fierce advocate for so many, not to mention the youth in our community. She is the one that ensures that the youth in our community, those disadvantaged, at-risk youth in our community, have an equal and equitable opportunity, regardless of their background. Again, Julianne Holt defines this award, and our community is a safer, stronger, and smarter community because of the efforts of Julianne Holt. So, Commissioners Selection Committee, thank you for recognizing such an important person in our community because we feel the impact on a daily basis. And yes, I'm one of the ones that receives those phone calls at 9, 10, sometimes even 11 o'clock at night when that idea pops up on how we can make things better. So thank you to every single person for being here today and taking the time to recognize someone who works far beyond recognition in making sure that she leaves this a better community than the way she found it. And Julie, I don't know if this is a good time to announce you'll be beginning your career at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office shortly. Too soon? Too soon then. Okay, board, excuse that. I'll be back at a later date. Have a great day, everyone.
I can see a food fight happening here. Okay. No, honestly, with the work that you've done in this community, I'm sure we'll all be fighting over you. So, but thank you very much for being here. Commissioner Smith, can you see Ms. Frank, and is she available? Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Can you see if Ms. Frank's available?
I don't have your technology, but she is available, so we will be able to.
Can you open the mic for her?
Include her.
Yes.
Yes.
Comments?
Ms. Frank, you are muted right now.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
We do hear you.
You hear me?
Yes.
Yes. And if you hit that start video button at the bottom that we spoke about earlier.
I will.
There you go. Excellent. Thank you. Oh, you just had it.
Is that good enough? I don't know.
Yes, we can see you. Yep, perfect. Thank you for moving the camera up.
Well, Julie, I'm just delighted that you received this award. You know that I'm very close to you. I used to be a colleague, but I was a colleague and a friend, and I'm remaining a friend and an admirer of yours. You know, it was interesting when we were listening to the Senate hearings for the new Supreme Court justice, And so many of the members of the committee said, well, she has something that nobody on the bench has, and that is she served as a public defender. And others chimed in as that being such a positive element in her character and her ability. And I think that it does open your eyes when you're representing someone who doesn't have the means and the latitude to spend money for representation, yet you've got people who are available who are very, very competent. I've had people say to me, oh, I don't want to have a public defender. And I'd say, oh, yes, you do. That is the very best. They know what they're doing. And sure enough, they'd come back and say, well, you were right. And I want to say, Julie, you're a miracle maker because you work for your employees so hard. You know that how the lawyers in particular are so paid so little for what they do. They don't have marble palaces to work in. They're in the courthouse and shuffled around from one place and another, and their salaries are not what they should be. But you went to Tallahassee, and you were at one time the head of the Public Defenders Association, and finally you got a breakthrough in terms of giving increases in salaries for the public defender attorneys. And that is critical. If you're going to have a public defender's office, it's got to be funded properly. You did a better job in Tallahassee than I did in getting the clerk's money for the employees. So I'm a little jealous about that. I just want to say, I think you know which team I'm on by the colors I'm wearing today, so I'm going to step on to Commissioner White territory for a minute. And I just want to say something. I want to give a shout out to the people in Ukraine for what they're doing, for their bucking up against everybody. They're watching their families being separated and being killed and being mauled and war criminal things happening. And they're doing it for democracy. And I'm glad that I sat through the public appearance point because everybody got up. They weren't afraid of what they were saying to the commission. They said they gave them their peace of mind, whether it was agreeable to them or not. And they didn't go to a gulag, and they didn't get shot in the back of the head. And we've got to be thankful for what they're doing for us, because it's hard to feel it when we're so isolated geographically, but philosophically, we're all in the same boat. And so I just say, God, give them the wisdom and the strength to have a quick victory and an everlasting peace. So sorry, Commissioner White.
Thank you, Ms. Frank. You're always such a pleasure to hear from, and thank you for offering your kind words. With that, I would like to turn it over to Commissioner Smith, who will recognize the commissioner's comments, and then we'll do a photo together for those that would like to participate.
Commissioner Hagan, you're recognized.
Thank you. I don't know what else can be said, so I'm going to keep my remarks brief. I want to first of all thank my representative Brenda Thrower and the committee for making an outstanding recommendation. For decades, Ms. Holt has done a remarkable job advocating for and helping those who need it the most. Can't think of a better recipient. So congratulations.
Thank you. And Commissioner Cohen, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I see so many former colleagues from the clerk's office here this morning. And I'm really reminded, Julie, of during the years that we worked together, you were always in Tallahassee. And it was not just that you were there for your office or as Pat said earlier, as head of the Public Defenders Association, you were always there fighting for the whole system. You were fighting for all of us. You were fighting for the clerk's office, for the judges, for the sheriffs, for everybody that makes the system work. Because you really have come to embody, I think, what is great about Hillsborough County's criminal justice system, and that is that everybody works well together and works as a team to keep the community safe. And I cannot think of anybody more deserving of this award than you, and I want to offer you my heartiest and most sincere congratulations.
Thank you. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I can't really add to what has been said here, the legacy, but that you've left behind with you're doing still, with your diligent representation and leadership in the office of the public defender. But I really note your spearheading over the years, the alternatives to prison, to a citation system for both juveniles and now adults when warranted. These are nonviolent misdemeanor offenders or other offenders that can perhaps far better be served than spending their time in prison or a juvenile facility by being helped and assisted and given the kinds of alternatives that they can to lift them out of maybe a downward spiral in our system. And I know that you've been a real voice for the voiceless in that, and a real spearhead early on in bringing that to our county, which I think has benefited us. It will be reducing our prison population as we move on and making lives better here in Hillsborough County.
Thank you. Commissioner Myers, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank my representative on the committee, Freddie Barton. But Julie, thank you for all that you have done for our county and what you will continue to do. Your service is priceless. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank my committee member, Kim Droege, for her service as well. And the committee absolutely made an outstanding choice. Julianne, I appreciate your many years of service to this county. You've been an outstanding public official, and wish you much luck and a lot of fun in your retirement years. Looking ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just wrap up really briefly by saying I'm very pleased to see this award going to Ms. Julianne Holt. It is, as everyone has noted, extremely well-deserved. Ms. Holt is what good government is all about. As our public defender, she has served with great integrity, guided by her own strong and steady moral compass. In her office, she has ensured fair treatment for our citizens, but in addition, Ms. Holt has gone above and beyond the job description of even the most excellent public defender, as we've been hearing today. Julianne Holt has dedicated herself to working to improve all aspects of her clients' lives. She's worked hard to match people up with the social services and the tools they need to become productive members of our community. And her methods have had real results of reducing recidivism and making our community safer and better for all of us. And a key to her success is that she has forged productive working relationships with others in ways that are unique to her very special brand as a public defender. The cooperative working relationship she has built with our sheriff's office has allowed her to provide meaningful benefits to her clients in ways that just don't happen anywhere else. And we are really blessed in that regard here. Ms. Holt, you've served your county well and wisely in a long and stellar career that is not quite over yet. And congratulations on this well-earned award.
Thank you, and thanks again, and congratulations again. She sets the bar so high, we all have to pay attention. That example is well appreciated too. With those that would like to participate in the photo that are either on the committee or friends and family, you're welcome to join us. We're going to come up here and take a photo with the board. So, thank you. Yes. Okay, we transition to the next item. Ms. Wise.
Thank you. Our next item is item E1. This is a special appearance by John Flanagan, who is the CEO of CareerSource Tampa Bay, to review the closure of the U.S. Department of Labor audit. Mr. Flanagan is here virtually. We also have Ron Barton and Ken Jones available if we have any questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Many of you know that I received a letter on March 25th of 2022 indicating that there was the letter was actually from the DEO regarding a settlement agreement involving CareerSource Tampa Bay. And with that, I'd like to recognize Mr. Flanagan for his presentation and comments for all of the board to hear. Thank you. Mr. Flanagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Board of County Commissioners, for the opportunity to present. My name is John Flanagan, President and CEO of CareerSource Tampa Bay. And again, thank you for the opportunity to come before you virtually to report on the USDO compliance audit, which covered the years of 2014 to 2018. In summary, the measures taken by the CareerSource Tampa Bay Board of Directors with leadership and direction from Hillsborough County and the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners to ensure transparency, accountability, and impact going forward. Through the course of the audit, CareerSource Tampa Bay addressed all non-compliance findings identified in the U.S. Department of Labor. These measures were all approved by the United States Department of Labor and the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. Some specific measures that have been taken to ensure transparency and accountability. First and most importantly, Hillsborough County terminated the management contract with CareerSource Pinellas, who was the employer of record and at the time was providing the management for both entities. Hillsborough County, through the Board of County Commissioners, established our own local-based organization to focus solely on CareerSource Tampa Bay and Hillsborough County. Second, we reconstituted the Board of Directors of CareerSource Tampa Bay, resulting in 80% new members, with all members now either working or living in Hillsborough County, established annual training, and aligned United States Department of Labor mission and outcome requirements with specific board training and direction. In addition, revised bylaws established the role of the BOCC as the entity identifying, vetting, and appointing new board members, as is outlined in the Workforce and Innovation Opportunity Act of 2014. We established the county attorney as legal counsel for CareerSource Tampa Bay, added a senior county staff person to the CareerSource Tampa Bay Board of Directors, and we established a direct liaison for constant communication with the county's Economic Development Department for additional accountability and alignment with Board of County Commissioner objectives. In addition, other significant changes in bylaws were instituted to address a more accountable and transparent organization with clear focus on the mission of connecting Hillsborough County's job seekers to career. And last but not least, county staff revised the CSTB bylaws to include the authority for the Board of County Commissioners to remove the CareerSource Tampa Bay president and CEO for cause to again ensure total accountability and transparency. I would be remiss without acknowledging the work and efforts of Ron Barton and Ken Smith, their partnership, leadership, and guidance. Both have been instrumental in assisting CareerSource Tampa Bay in getting its collective house in order. Both are great partners and are aligned with the mission of CareerSource Tampa Bay's mission, which is connecting Hillsborough County job seekers to meaningful careers and connecting the business community of Hillsborough County with the talent they need to thrive. Commissioners, as you've heard, there's much that has been addressed to build a more accountable, transparent, and mission-focused agency that represents this county. I do want to assure you all that CareerSource Tampa Bay has continually pursued the best interests of our residents and businesses since 2018, and certainly since my arrival in 2019. The board, myself, and the team understands the critically important mission that CareerSource Tampa Bay has and the lasting impacts it will have on the Hillsborough County community. Finally, CareerSource Tampa Bay and its board of directors is taking steps to mitigate any disallowed costs with no or minimum community impact and to the residents of Hillsborough County. Thank you for your time, commissioners. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have in more detail.
Thank you. I'll recognize Commissioner Kemp. Oh, she's not here. Okay. We'll come back to Kemp. Commissioner White, did you have comments? No, that's from before? Okay, we'll drop all of those. Okay. Thank you very much for your report. That is very, very helpful. Commissioner Myers, you're recognized.
Thank you. I want to give special thanks to John Flanagan, Ken Jones, and Ron Barton for saving CareerSource Tampa Bay during its darkest days. As we know today, CareerSource has taken an extra step in coming out into the communities to make sure that the underserved communities and other communities, CareerSource have moved into communities to help people with jobs and all. And I thank you. They have led an excellent ACE program for our county, making sure that people between the ages of 18 to 24 to have a job. And I know John joined CareerSource in 2019, and you can see his fruits of his labor of implementing new programs to continue to move CareerSource forward. And so, John, I just want to personally thank you for your leadership and what you have done to bring CareerSource into the new forefront in this county. Thank you.
I appreciate
Thank you very
it,
much. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you, and thank you for making that report. It's good to know that we are getting some closure on this issue that has been, I've been on the board for 5 years now and have experienced all sides of it. And I spent last year as a board representative, a BOCC representative on CareerSource, and I'm very convinced that it's being very well led now, that it's a program that's doing what we would be expecting it to do. I do want to take a minute to, well, I think it's important to acknowledge the history of it, because we had, even as I was a resident of Hillsborough County and followed the news, CareerSource was only a Hillsborough County program. Pinellas County had their own program, and we had significant issues, charges of misuse of funds and things like that with CareerSource. And the decision at that time, that was far before I ever became a board member, was to merge Pinellas County and Hillsborough County, and that was looked as part of what we needed to do to improve our accountability. And I just like to say that I have never seen that as a solution for making us more accountable in any way. In fact, it made us far less accountable with this merged organization, and it really spiraled, apparently, by all accounts, an FBI investigation by this, out of control and with a lack of accountability. And then, when I was on the board, that arose. We then return to having 2 separate career sources, one for Hillsborough County, one for Pinellas County. I think that's wise and an opportunity to provide better oversight. It's still a quite complicated organization. And as I said, I do have total confidence and faith in the work that Mr. Flanagan is now doing. We have these reports, but I just would like to know for the future if we could have some information about while Mr. Flanagan, the CareerSource is being managed well now, what about the future accountability, and how can we, what have we put in place, what controls, what guidelines, what do we have in place to ensure that we never return to the CareerSource that was for those intervening years?
Mr. Flanagan?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Kaplan. It's an excellent question. So I certainly am going to be a little bit more detailed in how we mitigated these findings that speak specifically to transparency, accountability, and local control. Significant changes in bylaw and policy have been changed and approved not just by our board, but of the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. One being, again, we talked about, the Board of County Commissioners' ability to remove me for cause should there be an issue again with performance or my position. A mechanism that did not exist, prior. The other thing is, there's a comprehensive annual performance evaluation of my position, and this is done to ensure focus on key areas of performance, financial and operational management and excellence. And certainly from a compensation standpoint, ensuring that I'm not overcompensated or this position isn't open.
Did he freeze? Or all right, let's give him a second to recover from the internet fog.
John, can you hear us?
Can we get him back? Communications, can you help him call in so that we can hear the rest of his answer?
Yes, we will.
Okay. If we wait just a few seconds. I had some comments too that address it, but I want to make sure he can hear us. So I'd like to make sure he can hear the questions. But just to reiterate, the letter that I received as the chair, which originally was sent to Commissioner Miller and then turned around and came back, from the DEO outlined some concerns some information that concerned me. There was a reference to the I guess is a federal funding process that refers to a lump sum payment of which no interest will be charged if received within 30 days of the date of the letter. Now, the date of the letter, since it was resent, is March 25th. But however, it has the second line that says, if the county is unable to pay in full, interest will be charged at the U.S. Treasury rate prevailing on the date of the decision, which was March 11th. With that, if given that the CareerSource has determined that they have their director and officer liability policy, I wanted to put the memo out there to that insurance carrier. It'd be really nice if it was paid by Monday, April 11th, so there's no question about when the clock started, and so that the county taxpayers won't be on the hook. And in my opinion, it would be part of the loss payment or liability to the loss that was recognized in the investigation that was done. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not an insurance lawyer, but additional interest cost of not being able to pay during whatever the deadline is, I think has been assumed in the liability policy. So I'm hoping that's the case. Do we have Mr. Flanagan available? Yes, I see you. You may proceed.
Are you able to hear me? I am so sorry.
That's no problem.
Hopefully you can hear me.
Okay. We can hear you. Please proceed.
Yes, interest payments will be managed through. We have access to unrestricted funds that would cover any interest payment. Additionally, we are going to work with the county, and my hope is requesting an extension. We've had some initial conversation with DEO about that possibility, and they are open to it. but we need to do a little bit further investigation on that. We just had some conversations with them yesterday as it relates to that. But it is our intention to seek some remedy from interest from that standpoint. If we're unable to do so, any interest costs will be managed and covered through CareerSource Tampa Bay unrestricted funds, which is allowable.
Excellent. And I just wanted to say, Mr. Flanagan, you have righted this ship. You inherited a nightmare, and you participated in the audit and provided recommendations to Commissioner Kemp's concerns on how to avoid those kinds of problems in the future, which I appreciate. And with the work that you've done to write CareerSource in the proper manner, I'm looking forward to putting this issue behind us as quickly as possible, including getting the federal government paid back as quickly as possible so we don't accrue any additional costs. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Yes, I'm afraid Mr. Flanagan seemed to have been cut off very quickly in that, and I just wondered, because we basically got about a sentence out of him, and I just wondered if he had wanted to add more to that.
Yes, yes, Commissioner. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. I turned my camera off to avoid any issues. So certainly through changes to bylaws, policy, procedure, all of which was approved by USDOL and the Department of Economic Opportunity, created more steps to essentially oversee my performance, giving the Board of County Commissioners availability and the opportunity to remove this position for cause in the event that that happens again. Creating new firewalls as it relates to insulating and protecting the county and its taxpayers through some changes in structure. We are moving away from being a direct service provider and creating more relationships with vendors who, quite frankly, do a much better job of the direct services part of what CareerSource Tampa Bay, part of what a workforce board is required to do, and working much more in concert with community partners.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Commissioner Kemp, did that address your concern?
Primarily, yes.
Okay. Do you have any further comments?
No, I just really want to have it on the record. And again, I think Mr. Flanagan's doing an excellent job. I just want to ensure for the future, because what occurred at CareerSource really was deplorable in the past and hurt a lot of Hillsborough County residents that were looking for job opportunities and other opportunities and help through CareerSource. So, we've straightened the ship, and I just want to keep it sailing.
Excellent.
I appreciate that, Commissioner. If I may say one thing, Madam Chair, I hope you guys caught this before, but I think my internet went out. I identified somebody as Ken Smith, who I meant to identify as Ken Jones. Ken is our county liaison. And has been instrumental in helping us get to where we are today. Ken, I want to thank you, and I want to apologize for calling you by the wrong name. It's been a long morning, so I apologize. Ken, you're awesome, and we love you here.
Thank you very much. And so, other than to receive the report, I'd just like to ask staff to continue working with Mr. Flanagan in order to get this resolved without additional cost to taxpayers as much as possible. And job well done in addressing it and bringing it to a closure point. Will we need to bring this back at a future date for a report on the resolution on the payment, or we'll just have that as a report at a future agenda item?
I don't know if it needs to come back to the board at all, but we'll just inform you. We'll just keep you updated that the payment has been made.
Okay. All right. With that, I thank you very much for your participation, Mr. Flanagan, and the hard work that you've done to get us here. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, B1.
Thank you. The next item is item B1. This is your 1030 item. This is to direct staff to advertise a public hearing on April 20th for the Discretionary Transportation System sales Surtax. And Sam Hamilton from the County Attorney's Office is here for this item.
Good morning. Sam Hamilton, County Attorney's Office. As Ms. Weiss just said, this matter is about an ordinance to provide for the levy and referendum on the 1% transportation sales surtax. When the board last discussed this matter and directed the drafting of the ordinance, we were not certain as to the board direction. So what did we do? As the item reflects, we actually drafted two versions of the ordinance. One is in the version of a charter amendment. The other is in the version of a regular ordinance that would go in the county code. Both contain all the same provisions. They contain all the provisions that were actually included in the board's motion. In addition, there was a lot of dialogue with the various stakeholders. We took most of the comments from all stakeholders. There were various tweaks. We also understand from all stakeholders that the versions of the ordinances are fine. They've accepted them. There are no issues from that perspective that we're aware of. One last little house cleaning note. The regular ordinance that was incorporated as part of the agenda has a few very minor Scrivener's errors, and just for the record, just to be very open, I wanted to just quickly go over those, and this will be very brief. Both the title and the ordinance should have incorporated just a provision that would say the ordinance would end up in the county code. That, of course, would be subject to the referendum passage. It's very standard. Again, it's a very minor point. There is also a reference in Section 3 that is a carryover from the charter amendment version that says Article 11. It should actually just say ordinance. Again, minor. There are two references in Section 6A and 6B, which deals with the transit portions of the expenditures. There's a reference to project plan. It should actually be transportation plan. The term of art was just defined as transportation plan, so it doesn't change anything in substance. It just is a consistency issue. The last change in Section 12B, the word "of" was left out of the actual title for the ballot question. Again, not substance. It just reads better, and the word was just inadvertently left out. With that, I'm certainly here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. I appreciate that. I see Commissioner Myers, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if my colleagues have any questions before I make the motion. So I would like to hear, to see if there's any questions before I move with the motion.
I would like to actually enter discussion prior to moving on motion, so I appreciate that consideration. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Yes, I just want actually to, and I guess before we make the motion to do that, I don't know if it would be appropriate at this time. Does it matter if I make a motion for a minor amendment now? Should I do that, or?
I think it would. I think it would be fine for you to describe what you're interested in doing. Ultimately, I think the best procedure is an amendment to the motion taken up before the main motion to make sure the board has voted on that.
Okay. So I have a very minor, also tweaking of the main ordinance as done there, and it's under the transit portion at which is 11.06 B. And I was been looking very closely at the HART budgets and needs. As you all know, that I am chair of HART and have been very familiar with that. And in terms of under expanding public transit options B, the very first sentence, I would like to slightly change. It says no less than 35% of the transit restricted portion shall be spent on transit services that utilize exclusive transit right-of-way for at least 75% of the length of the applicable service. And I'd like to reduce that to no less than 25% of the transit restricted portion shall be spent on transit services that utilize exclusive right-of-way for at least 50% of the length of applicable service. And I'm doing that to give more flexibility to the kinds of BRT systems that are also fixed guideway that are very prevalent in our first 10 years of planning, to allow that sometimes it's difficult to get a 75% right-of-way and that reduces it to 50%. That just gives more flexibility in how that money is expended.
Thank you, Commissioner Kemp. I actually, I have two questions as it relates to that. Two, I am aware, for example, that, fixed guideway isn't rail only. Fixed guideway is, dedicated bus lanes or a transit corridor that permits a bus to get through quickly and not to get stuck in the rest of the traffic. So, when we hear that this is all about a rail plan, that's not true. Okay, but to your point, I was curious if Ms. LeGrand is available to answer that question. If in transportation planning or transit planning, if the item 6B that relates to utilizing exclusive right-of-way, is there anything in transit planning that requires 75% versus 50% when it comes to funding and grant application process? Because I like the idea of reducing a little bit, because we do currently have, for example, the current TOD study that's in the process that Hart is doing that serves from downtown all the way to the university area. Because of the constraint of Florida Avenue, where that is being designed, it is incredibly difficult for them to meet that 75% rate because there's literally buildings in the way to get that fixed guideway along that entire route that qualifies for 75%. So I am curious, Ms. Adelaide LeGrand is here, and if you're able to possibly give us some opinion on what you feel the change would impact or present as an opportunity to our long-range transportation plans.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Madam Chair. Just to make sure I'm clear on what the question is that you're asking me to respond to, you want to know from a transportation planning perspective, is there anything that is required to ensure that it's 75%? I just want to make sure I understand what is being requested of me.
Yes, ma'am, that is the question.
Okay, so from a transportation planning perspective, fixed guideway, as you mentioned, is defined as a corridor that is dedicated toward a transit investment. So it doesn't have any specific connection to a mode. So it could be bus, it could be rail, it could be ferry. Ferry is considered fixed guideway because it's in a waterway that is dedicated only to the ferry moving through those waters. So that's the definition of fixed guideway. Depending on what percentage of the fixed guideway is in the fixed guideway investment is in a dedicated right-of-way, if it's 75% or 25%, or 50% rather, that is a decision that a community can dictate how you want to, put the investment. Specifically in Hillsborough County, I would say it would be a conversation that I would have with Ms. Wise's team to determine where the alignments are and if we could actually get a lane. And again, working closely with FDOT if it's a state route. But this is a part of the normal process. So from a transportation planning perspective, the way it works is you would look at your service area, make some decisions on where you have available right-of-way to make it exclusive or dedicated for a transportation investment, and then working with the partners, you would come up with the best solution. One thing I will also say that depending on the type of service, if it's more focused on peak periods, which traditionally is AM and PM work hours, you may have a situation where it's a dedicated right-of-way based on time of day, right? So it might be dedicated between the hours of, let's say, 5 a.m. to 10 a.m., and then dedicated again between the hours of, 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. So that would be, a situation where those corridors would be dedicated, but it would be dedicated for a specific period of the day, which may not fall within the 75 or 50% of the time. It will fall into 100% of the operating time of that investment. It's a little complicated, but I hope I was able to at least give you an overall, insight into the world of transportation planning.
It's not easy, right? Okay, well, thank you for your answer, I think. Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
Yes, I just want to say I would support that minor change there and thank Ms. LeGrand for being here to help us understand that. And I just will point out that, the language it says no less than 35%. So if we say no less than 25%, that doesn't keep us from going to 50 or more if we want, but it gives that extra flexibility to make something possible that might otherwise be impossible. So I'm hoping we can support that tweak. Thank you, Commissioner Kemp, for bringing that forward, and thanks, Ms. LeGrand.
Okay, excellent. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
A motion to that, so I'm thinking that's a second.
Yeah. So we have a motion by Commissioner Kemp, a second by Commissioner Smith. Would you mind, just for clarity point, could you restate your motion in order to make sure the clerk gets it right? Because we don't have a lot of time to make sure this gets right.
It's at section 11.06B.
Section 6.
Hold on. Excuse me. Because you haven't yet decided the main motion and we would need guidance on the charter amendment or the ordinance, it might be advisable to have the original motion made and then make an amendment so that it's very clear what you're amending, because there are two different section numbers, which probably is creating some confusion.
I see. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's a good point.
So let me,
Do you want to
I'd like to amend the portion that is.
Hold on. It should come after the main motion. All the amendments should come after the main motion, because you're amending presumably a motion that's coming forward that would give guidance on this if there's going to be the support. So
okay, so
I know Commissioner Myers said she was going to.
So for clarity, what I'm hearing is that in order for us to move forward on this referendum, the first decision is whether or not it's a charter amendment or an ordinance, and then that would determine any language amendments that we would need to address based on the charter language or the ordinance language. Is that clear?
Yes, I think that's clear, because otherwise you're going to be referring to different sections and it'll be confusing.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that clarity. Commissioner Smith, did you have a...
Yeah, it's just a point of order. Would it be, is it also possible if Commissioner Myers would make the motion including this change from the beginning in whether she's going for the ordinance or the charter?
Yes, absolutely. If Commissioner Myers is inclined to do that, she could include that in whatever motion she's planning to make.
Thank you.
Okay, but I had another amendment to consider, so that's why I'm asking the question. But Commissioner Myers, you're recognized.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make the motions for clarity so that if we have to amend, we can. Okay? Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we direct the County Attorney's Office to schedule and advertise a public hearing on April the 20th, 2022 at 6 p.m. for us to hear from the public and consider the regular ordinance provided in the backup rather than the charter amendment ordinance provided within the regular ordinance providing for the levy of and referendum on a 1% transportation system sales tax and the changes noted by the County Attorney's Office this morning. The location for the public hearing should be one that permits maximum public participation both in person and virtually. That's the motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Myers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Cohen. We'll address that vote now, and then we'll take any potential amendment or...
Actually, if you want to take the amendments first.
Okay, that's why I want to make sure we're clear here, because I want to get it right. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. And at this time, I want to take into consideration Commissioner Kemp's amendment. And is that in reference to?
Okay, it's in the expanding public transit options section, first sentence, where it now states no less than 35%. I'm changing that to 25%. Of the transit restricted portion shall be spent on transit services that utilize exclusive transit right-of-way for at least 75% of the length of applicable service. Instead of 75%, I'm changing that to 50%.
We have a motion and a second. A motion by Commissioner Kemp, second by Commissioner Smith. We'll take indicate your vote. We're voting on the amendment.
Motion carried 6-1. Commissioner White voted no.
Excellent. I actually had, for consideration, a small amendment change. It actually is in the section, depending on where it is, whether it's in the charter or the amendment or the ordinance. So I'm going to pass the gavel to Commissioner Smith and ask to discuss a minor change as it pertains to the review of the distribution of surtax proceeds. In our previous meetings regarding this conversation, I had mentioned alignment with our long-range transportation plan, which we have included in both the charter language as well as in the ordinance. So I'm asking, and I don't have, yeah, I have the ordinance, okay. So help me, Ms. Beck, in the event I'm not referencing the right line. But what I'd like to ask is for
Section 4D.
The Section 4D. Thank you very much. I had a feeling that's what it was, but I wanted to clarify. Currently, there's just literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words I'd like to add to that section, where it reads, the review, at least every 5 years, subsequent to the enactment of this section of 159 Article 11, the board will review the distribution of the surtax proceeds as provided for in Section 1104A through C. No, that's not it. That's not how it reads.
Is she reading from the charter?
I'm reading.
Yeah, I think Chair, I think you're reading from the charter, but I know where you are, though. It's actually would be Section 4A to C.
Okay, so after the words consistency, what does it say?
It says, and I quote, with the long-range transportation plan.
Excellent. Okay, so after it says consistency, I'd like to offer a small edit to say, with the goals, policies, and performance measures of the long-range transportation plan. And the reason I bring that up is that it gives us a method of, and clarity and transparency in how this board actually addresses any potential changes or any potential possibilities of reviewing any distribution changes. And that's in line with what we do now. It is the way we actually make decisions on our TIP and how we make our decisions on our long-range transportation plan. So it's not, and it's written into our long-range transportation plan. So it's not out of line. But I would like to see that we offer something that gives some method of making any potential changes in the future.
I'll second.
Okay, we'll have a motion and a second by Commissioner Kemp. Is there any discussion regarding that?
I was just about to ask that, but I see no discussion. For my own sake, though, Commissioner Overman, so I'm at Section 4D. At least every 5 years, subsequent to the enactment of this ordinance, the board will review the distribution of the surtax proceeds as provided for in Section 4A through C of this ordinance for consistency with the goals,
policies, and performance measures of
the long-range transportation plan. So that's the amendment made by Commissioner Overman, seconded by Commissioner Kemp. Seeing no discussion, we can have a vote.
Okay.
Motion carried 6-1. Commissioner White voted no.
Thank you. The gavel is yours.
Oh, thank you very much. Are there any other recommended language changes or considerations for amendment to move this, the main motion forward? Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have discussion to the main motion. I believe that's in order at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
I just want to remind everyone that we still have the issue of well over $500 million out there from the unlawful referendum that has yet to be returned to the people. In an effort to show statesmanship and try to play my role in moving this community forward, I had sent a letter to legislative leadership some time ago and shared that letter ahead of this meeting through a memo to the board. Subsequently, we received a follow-up memo from the board chair. And one of the things in the chair's memo is that it states, he also indicates that this issue would be an item scheduled for the April 6th board meeting. I never intended to schedule an item. I had heard that an item was going to be scheduled by another commissioner, which is why in my memo I said it's my understanding that there's an item scheduled for the April 6th meeting. If I had intended to schedule an item, I would have said I have scheduled an item or plan to schedule an item. Also, I just want to clear something up in the sense that in my memo, I never indicated that this board as a body has taken action related to the deal that was made between myself and my legal team and All for Transportation. I did state that the county, meaning county staff, had been consulted. I also stated in my letter to legislative leadership that this consultation was to receive, quote, input and guiding principles. The input and guiding principle that our county administrator provided is that she would like to see the money stay in Hillsborough County and be spent on transportation, simply put. And this is consistent with what the majority on our board has said time and time again. It's also noteworthy that in my letter, I noted that All for Transportation was consulted as well. I was taken aback by the chair's follow-up memo. I attempted in good faith to show statesmanship and do my part to move this community forward, as I've said. I understood that my team and All for Transportation had a good faith deal that was consistent with the county's guiding principles. But if we can't work together on this board and we're going to fight, it might as well be a fight that's worth it. So at this point, I'm inclined to say that I likely no longer support the deal spelled out in my letter to legislative leadership. Now, there are some that are perhaps naive and don't understand legislative precedent, but the legislature can do whatever it wants with these funds. And I'll do my part to remind the legislature that these funds belong to the people. I'm prepared to advocate for a robust and comprehensive refund process that seeks to return these funds to the people. I'm also prepared to suggest that a mechanism such as a sales tax holiday could be helpful as a tool to return these unlawfully collected funds to the people. Thank you.
Commissioner Hagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having gone through this exercise in the past, I appreciate the robust discussions and work that has been done, and want to thank everyone who's weighed in on the issue. Since today's outcome is a foregone conclusion, I am going to keep my remarks brief. Now, I understand the situation we are facing as a community. I've always been a staunch supporter of significantly increasing spending on transportation, and understand that a dedicated funding source is needed to adequately address our needs. I chaired our transportation task force in 2008 and led the charge on $500 million effort to adjust road and safety maintenance. I've also consistently said that if the county wants to raise taxes, the people should be allowed to make their decision at the ballot box. And in 2016, I supported allowing the public to vote on the issue, much to the chagrin of a few friends and some in my party. Even so, I voted my conscience. It was a tough choice, but I believed it was the right strategy at that time, just as 5 of you do now. Unfortunately, related to the ballot initiative today, I've come to realize that while the cause is good, the plan and timing is off. For me and my district, the priority has always been about roads, maintenance, and safety, not transit. And polling has consistently reflected that roads and maintenance being the #1 priority in District 2. The 2016 plan was a 0.5% and far more road and county focused than this initiative. While eliminating the lane capacity problem that existed in the 2018 referendum is a good thing, today's plan is simply way too transit-oriented and does not nearly do enough to help District 2, which is more concerned with roads, maintenance, and safety. Now, in the past, my support for the transportation initiative hinged upon the fact that our economy was healthy and growing at that time. Our interest rates and inflation were low. We had successfully navigated the Great Recession and had returned to normalcy. We were well positioned, and I supported taking the strategic step for the greater good. The circumstances today are far different. This is not 2016 or 2018. To the contrary, to say folks are struggling today is to put it mildly. I think we need to take a hard look at our community and realize that people are worried and afraid for their families, jobs, and security. To fail to recognize that is nothing short of tone deaf. Here in 2022, our community is facing the highest inflation in the country. Out of control gas prices and cost of living pressures to even meet the basic needs. For example, rent increases alone are in double digits, 45 to 50% some places. Gas is over $4 a gallon, and milk is at $5 a gallon, over $5 a gallon, more expensive than a gallon of gas. And let's not forget that many homeowners are going to get hit with increased ad valorem taxes and homeowners insurance rates due to the inflated and overheated real estate market. I'm convinced that this is most certainly the wrong plan, wrong time, and not at all in the best interest of our community. Frankly, if this tax passes, and I'm not at all convinced it will put even more financial pressure, stress, and worry on the backs of working families, residents, and businesses than they already have. And finally, and Commissioner White referenced this, I can't with a straight face ask the public to tax themselves when we do not have resolution on the 2018 referendum monies. Gerald White himself, a community activist who has supported a transportation referendum since even before I was elected many moons ago, said during our last meeting that he supports the referendum, but only if we have resolution on the last referendum. I believe that's a very significant point, and I can promise you he's not alone in that thinking. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hagan. I will pass the gavel to my vice chair and respond to Commissioner White's concerns. I do believe this board would be willing to come up with an opportunity to address what the legislature has proposed as being a solution based on the Judge Barbas's ruling. I don't believe that there would be any hesitation on this board's part. However, unfortunately, not in our agenda or not on this agenda item was the letter that Commissioner White had sent to the Senate President and the House Speaker that we did not have a copy of until the day before the agenda was due. So I thought maybe that's what the agenda item was referencing in your letter. So that didn't happen. But I am concerned that there's reference that Hillsborough County was at the table. And Hillsborough County, the Board of County Commission was not at the table. That was represented to the Senate President and the House Speaker. I did go to Tallahassee shortly after the letter was sent, and there was no reference by either of those, the Senate President's office staff or the House Speaker's staff, that a proposed remedy had been presented to them for anything. So that's where my concern is. If we're going to create transparency and trust in government, it's a wise idea to do it in the sunshine. And I would love to see that the opportunity to come up with a proposed remedy to offer to the Legislative Budget Committee that this board would feel comfortable in recommending. But at the end of the day, it's not our decision. It's not our decision to do a sales tax holiday. It's not our decision to address the class action claim that would ultimately have these taxpayer dollars that have been collected for transportation as a consequence of 57% of the voters approving a referendum that was put forward by the citizens and not this board. But those monies are being held in reserve in waiting for the issue associated with the class action suit that would potentially run taxpayers approximately somewhere in the range of 25 to 30% of those taxes to the attorneys that would represent that case. I find that challenging, and I find that as a proposed remedy in Commissioner White's letter to the Senate President and the House Speaker as being a remedy that I would not see as being a good remedy. So that was just my personal opinion. But I do believe that we should work together to try and offer to the legislature, who is now in their hands on the issue based on Judge Barvas' rulings, some opportunity to find good solutions for the monies that was voted on as for transportation. And I think we can get there. I don't look for a fight. I look for an opportunity to find a solution. And I'm hoping with that we can get there. And I do appreciate Commissioner White's effort to try and get this closed, and trust the legislature will ultimately resolve to find a good solution for this issue, and look forward to working with the legislature on behalf of the citizens of Hillsborough County. Thank you. Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Thank you. You're absolutely right. It is in the hands of the legislature at this point, and the legislature can absolutely prescribe things like a refund process, sales tax holiday, and at this point, I just want to let you know that that I worked with a trusted intermediary that's a respected member of this community. All for Transportation was absolutely at the table. They shook hands on what I thought was a good faith deal. It's obvious that they have not done their part to work to see this deal to fruition. So I see it as a deal off. So I think I was instrumental in getting this deal done at the legislative level, which was a monumental task. And I will absolutely do my part to see that the legislature supports something along the lines of what I've been an advocate for all along, which is something like a sales tax holiday. There was a lot of give and take in making this deal. I made a lot of concessions. I felt like the other side had made concessions as well. I thought we had a good faith deal. It's obvious that All for Transportation hasn't gotten out there and worked this deal. Frankly, All for Transportation has mischaracterized on several occasions what this proviso language means and what this deal means. So I'm just inclined to say that for me, the deal is likely off. And we'll see what happens heading into the fall session of this Legislative Budget Commission. But it's just a shame that that an organization like All for Transportation can shake hands on a deal. We worked really hard at this. I felt like everyone had made fair concessions. I just wish that folks could be honorable and keep their word, but it's clear that they have spent 0 calories on this matter.
Commissioner White,
It is what it is.
Commissioner White, I appreciate your comments. However, this wasn't on the agenda, and All for Transportation is not at the table. And the letter indicated that Hillsborough was at the table, and it's my understanding that maybe the attorneys associated with the case probably should have been at the table. But unfortunately, I do believe it's unfair to make those kinds of accusations without them being present to address it. So I would recommend that we bring this at a future date to address the issue associated with what's happened in the past and move forward with what our plan looks like for addressing the future.
Well, Madam Chair, I believe I still have the floor, and I just want to again point out that my letter stated that Hillsborough County was consulted and that input and guiding principles were sought. I in no way, shape, or form ever indicated that any official action had been taken by this board, but the important matter in the letter is that All for Transportation, which I believe that we can all agree was instrumental in the 2018 referendum, certainly had a seat at the table as a major stakeholder in determining what to do with this $500+ million. And I just feel as if a lot of hard work was done, handshakes were made, and that we had a good faith deal to just put that matter behind us, dispose of it, and move forward. And I just feel as if that there's a lack of integrity in where we are today with respect to that matter. I'll point out again that in my memo, I said that it's my understanding that an item's going to be scheduled. I had heard that another commissioner was going to place something on the agenda. That never happened, but that's why I sent that memo out, was to make sure that the board had that letter in hand in the event that an item was scheduled. I never intended to schedule an item, nor do I intend to schedule an item. I've shared the letter and the memo. It's unfortunate that things have gone on the way they have, but I'm likely to just say no deal at this point with respect to the funds on deposit from the 2018 referendum. And we'll have the Legislative Budget Commission process ahead of us this fall, and we'll see where we land.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Commissioner Cohen, did you have? No. Ms. Beck, do you have any comments?
I do not.
Okay, excellent. So we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Myers and a second by Commissioner Cohen. Seeing no further comments, please record your vote.
Motion carried 5-2. Commissioners Hagan and White voted no.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Ms. Wise.
Thank you. Our next item is item E2. This is to receive receive a special appearance by MGT Consulting Group regarding the Hillsborough County Equity Profile. Our presentation today is going to be led by Lamont Brown, their Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Solutions. And just a little bit of a history. As you might recall, on June 3rd, 2020, Chair Overman had a commissioner item. On June 16th, 2021 is when we awarded the contract to MGT. And then over the last few months, MGT has been coordinating with the community stakeholders, the public, and the county to collect data necessary in developing their report. And I know many of you have had briefings along the way. I do want to thank those who participated in the community, especially many of whom were here today, and appreciate their ongoing effort and offers of volunteer for support and going forward. I also wanted to mention that we had several staff who served as a committee and stepped forward. There was a liaison committee, and I would like to recognize, if I could, Carl Harness, Ramin Kuzikanani, Leanna Lopez, Cheryl Howell, John Patrick, Alba Krellman, and Ivy Martin. And Lindsay Kimball did serve on it before she left as well. Marissa Garcia served as our project manager for this endeavor. So with that, we'll turn it over to MGT at the end of the presentation. The board will receive the report, and then we would recommend that we come before you again also after consulting with stakeholders and analyzing the recommendations, and come before you at a future time as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, it seems like there's an issue that we maybe forgot something.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, Madam Chair, but on the prior item, We will need to know the location of the public hearing because we have to include that in the advertisement no later than 10 a.m., and that was not addressed. So perhaps the administrator can make a recommendation of where she would suggest that that public hearing be held, and then if you all agree, we probably need that to be done by motion so that we can make sure we include that in the advertisement.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Ms. Wise.
Thank you. And our recommendation, in order to have the best sound quality and access for the public, would be to have that here in this location. People will be able to participate virtually as well as in person.
Okay, so if we do a 6 o'clock board meeting, hearing in the evening at this location, and it also allows for both in-person and virtual attendance, we'll be able to address this item at 6 p.m. on April 20th, and we'll have our regular board meeting in the morning for any other agenda items that need to be done on that date. Is that your recommendation?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. And they'll both be at this location, correct?
Yes, County Center,
Okay.
yes.
I move that the public hearing be held at 6 p.m. on April 20th in these chambers.
Second.
At
Excellent.
where?
In these,
Here, correct?
here. At the county center.
No, I couldn't hear the last part.
Yeah, okay. At the county center. So we have a motion by Commissioner White, a second by Commissioner Myers. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please indicate your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that housekeeping. I appreciate it. Okay. Mr. Brown, you are on.
Great. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you, but you'll need to stay close to the mic so that the sound is consistent. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having us. I'm joined today by David Bushnell, who is a senior DI consultant for MGT. We are thrilled to present our presentation for the summary of the community equity profile. We've been working on this for over 6 months. We appreciate the support of the board of commissioners, the staff that you mentioned. We've had several meetings almost bi-weekly throughout the last 6 months around this project. We appreciate the support of the community and those members who showed up, turned up at meetings to give insight into the equity profile. The purpose of today's meeting is to review the main findings. There were several processes we went through. The first one was best practice research of what peers and other municipalities are doing to promote a culture of equity for their residents. The second portion was a quantitative analysis of data and policy. The third was community engagement, where we listened to community members to get insight into the state of equity based on their experiences and knowledge of happenings in the county. And overall, we put all that together into a final report, followed by a set of recommendations. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to David Bushnell, our lead DI consultant, who's going to give a brief overview of each of these 3 components, spending a little bit more time on the recommendations so that each of the 7 recommendations are clearly understood. And then we'll pause for any questions thereafter. At this point, I'll turn it over to David.
We can't hear you, David. You're going to need to work on your sound. We can see you, but can't hear you.
David, if you go down to where your mute button is at the down arrow in your audio settings, we can't hear you still. Under your microphone, which ones do you have available to use?
No, nothing yet?
Now we can hear you.
Now. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that, apologies. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Bushnell, as Lamont mentioned. Today we're going to be just starting off with some of the quantitative findings that we identified. This presentation is going to be a little more truncated than perhaps some of the other ones you may have already seen. And the report itself will contain much more detailed information. Our goal today is to hit some of the key points in each of these 3 sections. So what you see initially is a key demographic finding that we identified. The map on the right is the HOLC redlining map, historical redlining map, and the left is a dot density map of the distribution of communities by race across the county. There are a couple key notes here. While the white population is spread out across the area, racial minorities live in clear enclaves. Black folks are centralized to East Tampa in what the HOLC historically zoned as hazardous or declining, as well as smaller numbers found in Palm River, Claremelle, Progress Village, and Plant City. Hispanic and Latino individuals are more concentrated in the 12 Oaks region, Town and Country, Egypt Lake, and Drew Park north of Tampa, and Waimama south. What this allowed us to do and identify was this map here, which demonstrates the areas that have a multiplicity of overlapping characteristics, including low income, or overlapping at-risk characteristics, including low income, majority minority populations, high level of zero vehicle households, low educational achievement, and older adults. Areas that are highlighted with blue have 8 or 9 overlapping characteristics. Areas that are purple have 7, and areas that are red have 6. This is when in the report we reference areas of high need. These are the areas that we are referencing. And through our quantitative analysis, we identified 2 key themes. First is that history lives outside of the textbook. The history of redlining within the area still has a tremendous effect, which is unsurprising, but requires investment in order to rectify. The investment must recognize the economic primacy, which is our second key theme here. The economic primacy of these issues and investments must acknowledge that only through addressing economic consequences of these historic policies can equity be achieved in the county. Our second section was a qualitative analysis where we engaged the community through multiple channels to identify community feelings on these key issues. We engaged 6 focus groups, engaging 33 community leaders representing the organizations you see on the right-hand side. There were 4 communities meetings representing a total of 136 participants of various races, ethnicities, ages, levels of education, and general lived experience. There was a voicemail and email inbox that was used to get other engagements. There were 48 engagements through that, for a total of 217 different engagements. Additionally, this information was coded by the consultants at MGT, where parent codes were assigned to each of the pillars, which you'll see on the left-hand side, and children codes were assigned based on the multiplicity of comments received under each one of those pillars. What you see here is a chart that demonstrates the intersections of parent and child codes. What's important to understand here more than anything else is that affordable housing and economic opportunities are the largest concern of the citizens, and their respective child codes are the most frequent and most likely to intersect. So through our qualitative analysis, we identified 3 key findings. First is that affordable housing is a crucial concern of the community. Housing costs are rising faster than wages, and one comment that stood out to me on a personal level was a teacher who moved to Tampa to pursue her dream of teaching, and now doesn't make enough to either stay due to the rising cost of rent, but also doesn't make enough to be able to leave either. And this is a professional, a teacher with an MA, being unable to live in Hillsborough County. The second is economic opportunity. Economic opportunity was closely tied to affordable housing. The community felt that minority contracting was insufficient but this was measured prior to the increase of minority contracting goals in December that the county passed. There's also a distinct issue that there's a lack of high-paying jobs and jobs paying enough to match the increase in costs, and this will only be exacerbated by the inflation that is being experienced across the country. Finally, the third key theme was communication and accountability. This wasn't something that Hillsborough County explicitly asked us to measure, but was a key finding for much of the community that did have concerns around this at the same level of affordable housing and economic opportunity, if not higher. Finally, I wanted to discuss our 7 key recommendations based on the qualitative and quantitative analysis that MGT conducted. Our first is to create an Office of Equity and Access, what we're referring to as the OEA. The OEA will have 3 levels of responsibility: county, community, and neighborhood. At the county level, the OEA will be responsible for creating an overarching community benefits policy with the Hillsborough County community. This will help address affordable housing and gentrification across the county, as well as a community benefits agreement must contain meaningful resources if and when developers do not meet their community obligations. Additionally, at the county level, the OEA will be responsible for inventorying the available resources and facilitate efficient delivery of said resources. This is also going to include investment into building relationships with community-based organizations, which is the next level, the community level. The OEA will host a community roundtable marketed towards community-based organizations to establish the OEA as a key resource and to establish and ensure alignment across the county to assist with the management of expectations. Finally, at the neighborhood level, the OEA will be responsible for a creation of series of neighborhood plan updates in partnership with the Department of Community Infrastructure Planning, focused on addressing key equity issues by neighborhood. Our second recommendation is to conduct a risk-benefit analysis of instituting a disparity study. Currently, Hillsborough County has a 30% black-white wealth gap, which you can see in our quantitative analysis in the body of the report. And Hillsborough County has already established goals for its minority and women business enterprise program. The purpose of a disparity study would be to identify the economic impact of the county's spending habits across the county and how and where those dollars spent go. A disparity study can also be used as an economic engine of change in order to help identify how to best spend the dollars that the county is currently spending to vendors. There are a couple key considerations here. The result of the analysis should drive the decision to conduct a comprehensive disparity study or minority economic impact analysis. And a study could demonstrate that the current goals are too aggressive, which could prove to be a threat to the existing program potentially. So there's some cost and benefits associated with this, but we still definitely would recommend at least weighing those options. Our third recommendation is to establish an apprenticeship program in emergent and green technologies. So for a little bit for context, the city of Tampa itself has committed to 100% renewable energy by 2035, and the workforce training placement program was approved in December 2021. We have 3 recommendations under here. First is to pilot coding boot camps with universities and colleges through using CareerSource Tampa, and if successful, implement a regular program. The reasoning behind this is because this is an emergent technology that would allow for residents of Hillsborough County to become upskilled in order to address these specific the specific issues of affordable housing and economic opportunity. As mentioned, the city of Tampa is committed to 100% renewable energy by 2035. If the county of Hillsborough were to expand apprenticeship programs and upskilling opportunities within green technology, this would allow filling of those green jobs that will come about of this goal within Hillsborough County, as opposed to importing folks from across the state or across the country that can do these jobs that would further exacerbate the affordable housing issues that we mentioned before. Our fourth recommendation is to conduct a disproportionate minority impact study on the criminal justice system. MGT was able to identify in both the quantitative and qualitative investigations that there were issues around equity within the criminal justice system. However, due to the scope of our review, we were not able to identify where specifically those issues are stemming from and would require further investigation into this issue. So we would recommend conducting a minority impact study on the criminal justice system. Our fifth recommendation is to provide ongoing and comprehensive DEI training to all staff. We have a few example topics here. We recommend that the trainings be tailored to the specific level of the staff, as folks that are engaging on the front line and engaging citizens on a regular basis will require a different lens than perhaps the executives or even the board itself. Recommendation number 6 is to support enhancements in the public transportation system. There is a few different areas at play here. For those issues in the direct control of the board, one of the biggest concerns that we heard was the repairing the aging infrastructure related to roads and bus stops in the areas of high need we saw earlier, as well as recognizing that there are some issues that are more under the control of HART, which include redesigning existing routes to be more efficient and conform to the rapid growth of the area, as well as a consideration on investing in large-scale mass transit systems to bring folks from the outskirts from around Hillsborough and connecting them to Tampa and to the work areas in Tampa. Our seventh and final recommendation is to enforce the regular use of an equity decision guide. The equity decision guide is a deliverable that MGT is currently finishing up and will be delivered to Hillsborough County here in the next few days, I believe, if it hasn't already. This will be this is a decision point guide that asks critical questions when making decisions. It follows a best practice type of approach and looks at key considerations across the board. And then Lamont, did you have some closing thoughts?
Absolutely. First, I want to say on behalf of MGT, we thank you for this opportunity to partner with you on behalf of the residents of Hillsborough County. As you can see in the report that was submitted several weeks ago and our high-level summary of our findings, there are significant challenges with regard to equity in the county, that they are not insurmountable. But I do want to echo one of the community statements that was made earlier today, which is the idea that with big challenge, it takes a lot to overcome it. And it's going to be significant investment by the board and staff to make sure that these are addressed. And so these 7 recommendations are just that, the extent to which any or all are adopted, and there is significant funding and long-term investment into any or all the recommendations will have the best impact on maximizing and improving upon equity for all county residents. And so with that said, I want to thank you for your engagement. And if there's time, we can answer any questions.
Thank you both for your presentation. I don't see any comments in the moment. I'm sorry, Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I am just so glad that we're doing this. This is an excellent follow through on our earlier action to declare racism a public health crisis. And, you know, you can make these declarations and you can do these studies, but we have to actually act on them, and that is what we're doing. I mean, and I think that there's really good recommendations in this report for next steps and continued actions that will have meaningful effects of reducing discrimination, racism on several fronts in our community. I mean, I've seen approximately 1.2 jillion studies done and just sit on a shelf somewhere. But I want to say our county is really working on finding solutions, and this is a good step that shows this study shows the way to some good, impactful steps. And I do want to thank so many of the speakers who came this morning and are ready to step up and participate in those next steps, like the suggestion of the to create an office of equity and access. And I will be strongly supporting that. I think that is a good next step. I realize that today is not the day to take that action, but I just want to go on record saying I think that's a really good way to go, and echo the community who stepped forward and said that, and said they're willing to participate in that step, which is so important. The interesting parts to me in this study were those that are really specific to Hillsborough County today. You know, it's just really important as we consider actions to have the data that this report is providing, and going back to the history of redlining, whose effects we can feel still today as a legacy of institutional racism and discrimination that are still today impacting our community and our citizens in a negative way, socially, economically, quality of life, and health impacts. The wage gaps and wealth gaps stand out to me. And now, you know, we have this current data in our own community today, 70% less wages for Black people than white people in our community. And that's a shame. And also, 60% less wages on average for women in our community than men. And these are both disgraceful and need to be addressed. Our county does a good job with our encouragement and support of women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses, that I think is helping. But recommendation number 2 in this study, to conduct a risk-benefit analysis of instituting a disparity study, is where we can learn how to where our work is being effective and where we might be more effective in supporting minority-owned and women-owned businesses and closing, identifying solutions that could effectively reduce those wage gaps and wealth gaps. So I am excited to be taking this next step, and appreciate the work that's gone into the report that came before us today, and looking forward to the next steps. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Myers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, let me say I appreciate all those who came in this morning to speak on the equity study profile. In listening to them, 2 key things that they kept mentioning was the funding and collaboration. And we know when you have a report and you want to have the recommendations in the report, it takes funding to make that happen. And I appreciate MGT presenting and finding all of their recommendations. However, I would like to make a motion that we hold a workshop as a board to come and discuss the, I'm sorry, let me get it right. I move that we hold a workshop on the county's equity study report and allow the county administration to address the recommendations in the report and then give us an update of what the county has done. We know we had some ARP funding that addressed some of the underserved communities with internet access and all, and that was a part of the report. And so I would ask that we come back in 90 days, or 90 days not good, 120 days, that we hold a workshop and that we find some funding to address these issues. Second. Okay, because we can talk about it, but if we're not putting any money there to address these issues, the report sits, as I pulled two other reports from 1990, 89, and 90 that address some of the same issues that we're talking about today. So thank you.
Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I would like to thank the speakers this morning. They have been really following this. They were very involved in looking at whatever group during the procurement was that Hillsborough County was procured as to do this equity profile. And they have been really just following the work in the county ever since they came forward. Many of them, maybe all of them, from the Bible-based Fellowship Church that really had been involved with us. And we did pass a resolution for members that weren't here at the time to recognize racism as a public health crisis. It was adopted by many counties around the country. But one of the concerns for me, and I was the one who presented the motion, brought it forward, was the kinds of actionable steps that we could take within it. Part of what it was recognized, which was generally, like I said, placed around the state, around the nation, in different counties, was the criminal justice system, which I addressed part of Julianne Holt this morning, and some of the changes that I've seen in the last 5 years that have been spearheaded here and by Sheriff Chad Chronister. And I'm talking about in that resolution, racism as a public health crisis. Much of it was healthcare, which I have been extraordinarily proud of this county, actually, that has a half-cent tax dedicated to health care for those who are not covered anywhere else. And it is a remarkable program that does so much. And, that information and what we've done with that program, I thought was really spoke to some of the concerns in the way that we could possibly do as a county in that area. But at the time, I really wanted to think about actionable kinds of things. What were the issues? How could we address them? And I, think what has been brought back here are some policies or recommendations that we could move forward on. But I actually think one, and I think we could bring this as part of the workshop, I guess. One that I think is key is to create an Office of Equity and Access. And I just went and looked around the state of Florida once I received this to see kind of what was happening in other counties. That's what I usually do when I want to find out this. And I see that that Miami-Dade has created an Office of Equity, and they call them different things in the last year or two, as well as Broward counties, Palm Beach County, the city of Orlando, And it looks like Leon County and Tallahassee have done so. And I was interested, and I was going to make a motion to this effect, and maybe they could bring this back at the workshop. But I would like to understand what, because I think with these other proposals would be something that could be guided by such an office. But I'd like to understand what the other offices are around the state, the staffing, one person, two people, the kinds of projects they pursue. I would just like to know what the other counties are.
Not here then, but speaking for myself, I certainly would have been in support and am in support of such a statement. But at the end of the day, what we do is really a function of where we spend our resources. That is how we can have the biggest impact on our community. And I think it's important this morning as we're discussing this report, and I'm fully in favor of the workshop proposal, but I think it's very important that we recognize that part of why we are doing what we are doing on transportation is because there is a huge problem with inequity in our community in terms of people being able to actually access employment and be able to live somewhat close to where they work and not being pushed out further and further from the job centers in our community. And I think that these things go hand in hand. And we, as we talk through the coming season about our transportation needs, I think it's very important that we frame those needs in terms of equity and in terms of what it means to particularly our Hispanic and African American communities in terms of being able to access jobs, good paying jobs, and not having to spend all of your disposable income getting to and from work. So I really hope that that will be part of our discussion as we move forward on this.
Thank you, Commissioner Cohen. And I am of the same mindset. There was, we heard from Mr. Bushnell that this was an abbreviated slide deck from what they previously had planned. I think part of it is because of our day running a little long, but I don't know that for sure, because there was a slide that was in the slide deck that I reviewed prior to today that I will make sure all of you have. Additional data that was considered. For example, the largest percentage by age sector in Hillsborough County that actually skews our average ages to younger than most U.S. average communities, skews it towards the ages of 25 to 29 and 30 to 34. Those are our largest populations in terms of demographics across the spectrum from age under 5 to age over 85. When we're planning for the future, when we're addressing our social safety nets, when we're addressing inequities in whether it's race or income, the largest place where families are coming together and having children are in those age ranges. And when our policies interrupt that process, when we're not recognizing that the largest sector of our population in our county are at a stage where they're not only having to buy a car because they just graduated from high school or college, they're having to find a place to live, they're having to pay rent, they're having to find a job, and they may also be, developing a family and having childcare. These are huge financial barriers for families. And when that slide is not in my deck, and we're talking about investing for the long haul, I think these issues are critically important. So I do want to support the motion to have a workshop to bring back the core elements of the plan, of the recommendations, with staff's observations of one of the best ways to move forward. But I do like the recommendation that we consider utilizing ARP funds for that workshop and the work that we need to understand in the data that's in this report, by allowing the consultants to really work with us on understanding the recommendations and ferreting through that issue. And I'd like to make a amended motion that be scheduled for May 25th for the workshop that's scheduled for that date. And the reason is we're going into budget negotiations. We're going into a time period where we're setting our priorities on how we spend our resources in June and throughout the summer. And so I don't want to delay the process of moving forward on the priorities and the recommendations here. So I'd like to actually suggest to offer an amendment to your motion, Commissioner Myers, unless Ms. Wise has something else already sort of slotted for that May 25th workshop that's on our calendar. I'd like to recommend that we consider that date for the workshop and continue working with the consultants so that we're best prepared and the staff has an opportunity to review the recommendations, which they've had for quite some time, and come back to the board for discussion on setting priorities on these recommendations. And that's my motion.
Are you looking
Yes.
to me for that date? I do not believe we have anything else scheduled yet for that date. I just want to make sure that we're ready and prepared. So we will certainly do our best. If we can't do it, we can
Right.
certainly
It's almost 2 months, so I think we should be able to kind of get a chance.
May is next month.
Well,
I know it's next month, but we're at the beginning.
It's a little over a month with
It's a
the
little
agenda
over a month.
deadlines and whatnot. So.
Is it possible we can work with June?
We're going to be in budget workshops during that time period, I would assume.
Yeah, but if we're coming with a recommendation with some funding, I'm sure County Administrator Wise will hold up the budget to get our funding in there.
What we could do certainly is, put a dollar amount, and we don't have to say specifically what it is, but we could ensure that we have dollars set aside for the purpose, and we can be more detailed later throughout the summer and specifically say what the dollars are for, so we ensure that you do have adequate dollars for that. Is an option.
As long as, as I suggested, is that it is allowed to have enough information that we can make financial commitments to this process, and so, this year or this next budget cycle. And that's what I'm concerned about. I don't want to find ourselves behind the power curve and not including it in our goals and implementation and priorities for the 2023-24 budget cycle. So, Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I'd like to suggest that I think the motion on the floor that we have a workshop to sort out these issues is, and given the board discussion, I think we have sufficient staff direction without amending it further to, it's clear to me that we have support for the idea, the recommendation of creating an Office of Equity and Access, but it's important to look at what that would cost, how that would work, how many people would staff it. As Commissioner Kemp mentioned, Commissioner Cohen noted the need for transit and affordable housing and transit-oriented development that is highlighted in the report as a place to address inequity and close the economic disparities. And as Commissioner Myers said in her motion, we really need to address the funding, and that would be including budgetary concerns. So I'm thinking that staff has enough direction to address all of that in the motion on the floor. Ms. Wise, you think so?
I certainly, we've heard the discussion and probably any other research that we would want to bring forward to you for consideration, comparisons as well as data. That's why we wanted enough time in order to be thorough in our presentation to you.
So, I suggest we let staff kind of work with our calendars and the budget schedule and make sure that we do try to address this in the budget process as effectively and efficiently as we can, and leave it there.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
I'll just say that I agree with that because I think it's a big bite if you're going to do it well. So I'd rather have time to do that. And as I said too, I wanted to see if at that time I think it'd be a good thing to understand what other counties are doing and how we could proceed. And that, gives an opportunity for that to happen too. And I'm not sure if I need to make a separate motion now. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And thank you, Commissioner Myers, for considering it. I just wanted to make sure it worked well with the budget cycle. And as I promised this board and the community that it was, when I brought this project forward, that it's not going to sit on a shelf. I just want to make sure it doesn't actually sit on the shelf at all. So well, thank you very much for your support in moving this forward within the 90 days, but not in 90 days. Okay, well, thank you very much. Commissioner Myers, you want to restate? Is that a motion? That you've got the motion? And we have, I'm sorry, who seconded that? Commissioner Smith? Okay. Please indicate your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Ms. Wise.
Commissioners, what is your pleasure? To plow through? We have just, our regular agenda items will be very quick. And then we have Commissioner White, yours is very quick, and then the PACE report.
Who's, everybody going to plow through? We're going to plow through? All right, let's go.
All right. Speed agenda. The first regular agenda item, item B2, this is to approve additional dollars to extend our food agreements of $5 million. Tom Fessler will present this item regarding the American Rescue Plan.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Tom Fessler, the Financial Administrator. We have one item for you today regarding the American Rescue Plan and a further commitment. This item is asking you to approve an ARP funding commitment to extend some existing food contracts with some nonprofits that we've been working with. The amount is $5 million. The extension period would be from April 1st of this year through September 30. It's anticipated that this would be, in fact, be the last commitment of ARP funds for these contracts. We are continuing to see an increased need for food assistance to county residents. The demand levels are still exceeding pre-pandemic levels. Associated with this item would also be a budget amendment that would take some ARP funds from reserves and appropriate those funds for this purpose. If this item is approved, you will have committed $217.4 million of $285.9 million in ARP funds. Also, if this item is approved at the next meeting, we would bring back on your consent agenda modifications to existing contracts for the nonprofits that are providing this service.
Move approval.
Second. I have a motion by Commissioner Wyatt, second by Commissioner Myers. Please indicate your vote.
Commissioner Myers, your vote, please. Motion carried 7-0.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Ms. Wise.
Thank you. The next item is item B3. This is to award construction and renovation work contracts at county facilities. And Scott Stromer, Director of Procurement Services, will take us through this item.
Good morning. Scott Stromer, Procurement Services. Item B3 is asking the board to award and execute 2-year agreements with the 3 lowest responsive and responsible bidders for construction and renovation work of facilities and locations throughout the county for the Capital Programs Department at a total cost of $18 million. Specifically, awards are recommended to Walkley Construction Company Incorporated in the amount of $8 million with a .444 multiplier, Commercial Interiors Incorporated in the amount of $6 million with a .449 multiplier, and New Vista Builders Group, LLC, in the amount of $4 million with a .488 multiplier. The resulting contracts will be used to expedite the construction and renovation of facilities and amenities throughout the county. To its credit, given the widespread volatility in the construction market, the Capital Programs Department intends to use the job order contract delivery method for certain low to moderately complex projects. This method is normally used for smaller projects, but will be applied to larger projects to facilitate faster work order awards, which we hope will help mitigate vendors' pricing uncertainty and higher project costs. The projected work plan provides a list of anticipated projects. However, this list is subject to change depending on a variety of factors. This method relies on RS means cost data, and the respective multipliers will be applied to determine the cost of the work, which will then be assigned to the recommended firms up to the respective award amounts. The new construction apprenticeship program is part of this award. Therefore, at least 12% of the total work hours must be performed by apprentices employed by the prime contractors or subcontractors, and the recommended vendors have committed to meeting this requirement. A disadvantaged business enterprise participation goal of 12% was also established for this work, and all 3 recommended vendors have committed to achieving this goal of 12%. One of the recommended prime vendors, Commercial Interiors Incorporated, is a certified Hillsborough County disadvantaged business. With that, Procurement Services Department does recommend approval.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your report, Mr. Stromer. Any discussion?
Move for approval.
Move approval by Commissioner Myers, second by Commissioner Cohen. Please indicate your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Ms. Wise.
Thank you. The next item is item F2. This is Commissioner White's item regarding the Theodore Roosevelt Hillsborough Forever Conservation Award.
Excellent. Thank you. Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We would like to present that award at the next meeting, April 20th, but we would have to approve the recommended recipient first. The name of that recommended recipient is in your backup materials. So my motion is to request board approval of the ELAP subcommittee selection for the 2022 Theodore Roosevelt Hillsborough Forever Conservation Award. The subcommittee also requests that the presentation of this award take place at the April 20th, 2022 BOCC meeting and scheduled for a 9 a.m. time certain.
So we have a motion by Commissioner White, a second by Commissioner Smith. Seeing no further discussion, please indicate your vote.
Madam Chair, your vote,
Sorry,
please.
sorry, thought I hit it.
Motion carried 7-0.
Excellent, thank you. Ms. Wise.
Thank you. The final item is a staff report. This is to receive the PACE program update by Frank Strom, and we also have various members, maybe still so, from the tax collector's office if they're available as well for any questions that you may have.
Excellent, thank you very much. Mr. Strom, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Good afternoon. Frank Strom, Consumer and Veterans Services. Item G1 is a report and update on the former property assessed clean energy program. PACE is a voluntary financing method for owners seeking to make qualified energy improvements on their property. In Florida, PACE is governed by the requirements and qualifications defined in Section 163.08 of the Florida statutes. On August 20th, 2020, the Board of County Commissioners voted to end PACE agreements in Hillsborough County. At the August 4th, 2021 Board of County Commissioner meeting, Commissioner Overman directed staff to work with our county housing stabilization teams and the tax collector to bring back a report on a property set to be foreclosed on August 26, 2021. Additionally, to report on other properties identified as having a PACE assessment applied and in potential tax sale default, and to explore options to assist the homeowners. To date, the tax collector has identified 3,021 accounts that have acquired PACE assessments, with approximately 25 properties currently subject to future potential tax sale due to delinquency. Of the 25 properties, a majority are in the first or second year of delinquency and may be corrected prior to an actual sale date being set. Therefore, the data remains variable. The property that was identified at the August 4, 2021 meeting for a tax sale on August 26, 2021 has been resolved in favor of the homeowner. Relief and payment of the delinquent taxes were paid for by Florida Green Finance Authority, Renew Financial. One property is currently scheduled for tax sale on April 21st, 2022, and staff is attempting intervention and coordinating potential assistance with the third-party administrator for Green Corridor Clean Energy, Y-Green. It is important to note that the tax collector's records only indicate those properties that do not contain a mortgage. There are approximately 2,495 accounts that taxes are paid through escrow, which could potentially limit visibility of properties in default. Early intervention allows more time to provide proactive resolutions. In collaboration with the tax collector's office, social services, code enforcement, affordable housing, an outline of preventive measures to assist homeowners with current PACE assessments is submitted for your considerations. Commissioners, we have attached a swim lane flow chart of the anticipated preventive measure process. An annual review of properties will be implemented, and as determined, a report provided to the Board of County Commissioners. The primary goal of the process is to identify potential homes at risk of tax sale, initiate contact with homeowners, offer a review of existing PACE assessments, provide mediation when PACE providers may be in violation of the terms of their agreement, offer resources to homeowners, and review properties for potential affordable housing solutions with the homeowner. I would like to point out and thank both representatives of Renew and Y-Green for their efforts in addressing potential defaults. Both parties have provided information on their hardship program for homeowners who meet certain eligibility. Our investigators will incorporate their programs into our list of resources. I would also like to thank our partners, Sam Hamilton, County Attorney's Office, our directors, Joe Gross, Cheryl Howell, Audrey Ziegler, and my division manager, Eric Oslin, as well as our tax collector, Nancy Milan, Jennifer Castro, and Charlotte Luke for their diligent efforts on this project. Commissioner, this concludes my report. I and our partners are available for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I don't see any questions, but I actually have a couple of comments and observations since I've been working and following this quite closely. You know, the difference between the residential program and the commercial program is significant. One of the issues I had with the residential PACE program is that there was not the required or same level of underwriting in terms of qualifying the homeowner for affordability in this particular making this financial decision. And as well as identifying whether or not the work was necessary or potentially possible. So at the swim lane illustration in your backup is illustrative of the process of monitoring the program. But it does lay a nice format for actually addressing, if there were ever any futures, addressing the initial review process, the underwriting necessary, and then whether or not the property owner needs the assistance. So I think, you know, if we were to ever consider regaining the residential element of the PACE program, that is worth noting. Because in the difference between the residential and the commercial is that there is provision within the law that requires that a commercial, industrial, or other commercial PACE program requires notifying the mortgage company. So the banker has to sign off on it, that the borrower can actually afford the assessment. We don't have that in place for residential borrowers for this program for all practical purposes. And until it does exist, I'm afraid we wouldn't be able to move forward. But because there is a difference on the commercial PACE program, I would like to bring back a future agenda item to consider just the commercial PACE program for consideration in Hillsborough County, given that it's not widely used. And asking, you know, how many of these PACE programs were actually commercials, I was provided that there's really only 5 cases of commercial. But for business owners that have experienced some challenges, would like to possibly upgrade their facilities, and given the high cost of doing some things, there may be some opportunity on the commercial side. But I wanted to make sure that if that was something that we could consider, we could ask the staff to bring back possible considerations in that area, or at least a report on what issues we should consider if we should look at that at all. Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I saw a recent 8 on your side clip about a citizen that was caught off guard by a roof repair job that was absorbent. So I like the idea of this PACE item coming back in front of the board. So to address what the county is doing to assist homeowners on the residential front, if attached to that item Ms. Wise, if you'll also bring to the board a list of all organizations that provide for home improvement projects that receive funding through Hillsborough County, to include federal, state, and local funding sources. That citizen that was caught off guard had the contractor provided through a local nonprofit organization. I'm not so sure that the county had anything to do with that, but given the facts of that situation, I'd like to see a list of all the organizations that we fund that do that sort of work. And again, from all funding sources, federal, state, and local.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Well, if we do an item like this, then, and we include that, I would really like to include a presentation by SELF, which is a county-supported program, the energy and loan, the solar energy and loan program, it's just an excellent program. It's a not-for-profit. It has an excellent reputation with a 99% or greater payback. It has excellent support for citizens. I'm very proud that our county works in cooperation with that program. So I think it's time. Every once in a while, I like to refresh memories and let people know about that program, because it's so extraordinary. And I'm so pleased to have that here. So I'll just add that in.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Kemp. So do you need a motion, or just is this a request to staff to bring back a consideration, or do you want a motion? I don't have a date set because I know there's several elements that have been added, but.
Probably some direction to us to bring something back. It could be in future issue items as well, that we can bring something back.
Okay. Well, I'll just make a motion that we ask staff to bring back the information that Commissioner White asked for, as well as what Commissioner Kemp asked for, as well as Mr. Strom to provide us with additional information that he may be able to recommend, not only as it pertains to any residential consideration, but primarily in my interest is the commercial opportunity to possibly look at what the risks were or any provisions that we may consider in Hillsborough County.
That's a motion from Commissioner Overman. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion, and just want to be sure that the motion includes receiving today's report as well.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry.
Okay.
Including today's report, to set at a future date that works within our board schedule, preferably within, say, the next 90 days. Thank you.
Motion by Commissioner Overman, seconded by Commissioner White. I find myself surprised that there's action being taken today to resurrect PACE, having been, against the program every time it's come forward, and I thought we'd driven a stake in it the last time. I would, if this is going to come back and be discussed again, I'm glad that we will be looking at what the alternatives are, including the SELF program, and I hope that we will also be looking at the role of the county as a lender of money in this program, and the extra additional fees, the economic impacts of that. As every time I've looked at the PACE program, it has put the county in the position of being the worst kind of loan shark, with additional fees that we collect on the person or businesses' taxes. So regardless of whether it's individual or commercial, I don't see myself supporting this role of our county as a lender, particularly with the bad economic. It has never been a good deal for the consumer in any way I've seen. I will, in the spirit of collegiality, I will go along with the motion to bring things back, because I rarely do object at just the bringing back idea. but I'm just going to tell you, I'll be looking very carefully at the role of the county as a lender with the economic hardships that's always had, and I do not anticipate myself supporting any further resurrection of the PACE program in our county.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith.
So with that, seeing no further discussion, we'll take a vote.
Motion carried, 6-0.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Wise?
Your final item are future discussion items.
Do we have any future discussion items? Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The last time the ELAP referendum was approved, I believe it was $200 million that the voters approved in terms of ELAP bonding at that time. So I've asked for an analysis from our financial advisor. Looks like the ELAP program would have $71.59 million remaining in borrowing capacity. And we've been blessed, even in the wake of the COVID pandemic, that our ad valorem revenues seem to continue to be steadily increasing because of the increase in property values. So I have learned that we could get ELAP an additional $35.7 million in bonding capacity without raising the millage rate, without raising the taxes. And it looks as if this continues on, perhaps in a few more years, we could essentially wrap up the borrowing capacity that was approved in the last referendum without raising taxes. The budget, though, would have to reflect the line item for the debt service, though, for ELAP. So I'd like to request that the county administrator include that debt service line item for the $35.7 million for ELAP that we could do without raising taxes, to include that in your recommended budget for the board's consideration.
Okay, we have a motion by, oh, that's not a motion. That's a future discussion item, sorry. Thank you, Commissioner White, for bringing that forward. I think that would be a great opportunity for us to make a difference in the area of ELAP. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. I know many of the other board members have recently been briefed on coming issues with regards to citing schools in unincorporated county and the issues surrounding that have been just, for all my 5 years, it's been a problem. Last year, I thought we were starting to get more of a handle on it. We have done all kinds of things over the years. As I do, I just did some research last year about, what anyone else was doing around the state with regards to this. And I always look at a parallel county, which is Orange County, which is about our size, our population. They actually have a rural service area and an urban service area. And they actually had about 180 PowerPoint slide deck, 180 slides about, they had spent a consultant and they had spent years or a year studying the issue of how they could do this and how they could update their policies with regards to this. They also, I was recently forwarded the school site standards that they have in Orange County, and I had looked for parallel standards for us, and I guess they're in interlocal agreements or in all kinds of places. We don't, as I understand, kind of have parallel standards to, this is a very thin document of some of the standards that they have one section. But I am really, I really don't want to head to a another crash where I feel like I don't know what I'm doing in a few months in terms of school siting, don't have the information, don't understand the student populations around, the populations now, the possibilities, and our issues with surrounding these places with infrastructure, what size they need to site schools. So I know the staff was addressing this, and I'll just say they did a good job on Collins Elementary and co-siting it with a community center in the Riverview, Summerfield Boulevard area. But I really feel like we have to do, I really need more information. I'd like to see, I'd like to direct staff to please bring us back a report on what we can do. Maybe we need a consultant in to gather information for us, to give us some alternatives, to start to look at how we can actually plan forward. And maybe we have no choices except for very bad Faustian choices in regards to this. But I don't feel like I have the information to understand or move forward on the kinds of things that seem like they're coming imminently forward. And I just would like to know if there's anything else we can do as we move forward for the future in dealing with this more thoroughly and comprehensively.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I just have one request for a future item. I'd like to ask our communications, our team, those that, and those involved in the various different programs that we've rolled out in the last year that impact our residents that are struggling for housing or dealing with evictions. We have passed the Tenant Bill of Rights. We have created an eviction home stabilization program. We have the EREP program. We have a variety of programs that we've rolled out in the last year. But I don't know, I'd like to get a better understanding of how we are communicating with the public that those benefits are available or those resources are available and how they work. So if we could, because right now with housing at a crisis level, I think it's critically important that we all understand, and we have our stakeholders understand where they can gather information and how we have communicated it and where they can gather information in order to be able to address those concerns in our community. So I look forward to getting a report from each of those areas as well as from communications on how we get that information out. So thank you very much. Seeing no others, I think we are adjourned. Thank you so much.